All right, Mr. Chairman, we are streaming. We're just waiting for Casey to get his video and audio on.
Sorry about that.
Great.
Okay, Casey, how are you, sir?
Good, how are you?
Good. Okay, it is 7:01 on January 27th, 2021. My name is Rob Cagnetta, and this is the meeting of the South Kingstown, Rhode Island Zoning Board of Review. Members tonight are Thomas Daniels, our Vice Chairman, William Mark, Bill Rosen, and Casey Charkowick. Also present are Jamie Gorman, the South Kingstown Interim Building Zoning Official, Mike Ursulo, who is the South Kingstown Legal Counsel, and Jessica Spence, our Administrative Support Associate. The board is made up of 7 people, where 5 of them are regular voting members, where 5 are required to be present to vote, which is the case tonight. In the event one of our 5 members is not present, an alternate will step in. And then we can use another member, which we are using all of our alternate tonight. So we are full. There are certain rules that we have to follow. If someone loses power or someone drops off, we really can't continue unless they come back in. Tonight, the voting members will be myself, Thomas Daniels, William Mark, Bill Rosen, and Casey Charkowick. Applicants are here for either a variance, dimensional or use, or seeking a special use permit. The board is a quasi-judicial body created by the South Kingstown Ordinance pursuant to state statutes. We don't follow strict rules of evidence, and we operate in what we believe to be in a fair and equitable manner. We try to let everyone speak unless they get a little carried away or it is determined not to be relevant, which I'll jump in and help get us back on track. So in the interest of time, try to be on point and try to be brief. We do our best not to argue and keep things civil, and we try to hear the last petition before 10 o'clock. When your petition is called, please come forward and please make yourself known. Jessica will let you know how to do that. State your name and spell it for the record. Speak clearly so we can all hear you. You'll then be asked to take an oath to tell the truth, and then you can present your petition along with other witnesses to testify in support. The board will then ask you and your witnesses questions. After the petitioner has presented their testimony, anyone else with questions about the application or wanting to support or oppose the petition will then be asked to make themselves known by raising their hand. And Jessica, again, will explain that. This will identify themselves. They will also identify themselves, be sworn in, and present their testimony, which will be followed up by any questions by the board. Please do not ask any direct questions of either the petitioner or the witnesses. We'll help do that for you. We'll have the petitioner answer the questions raised by the audience and or have them respond to comments after your comment period, the opposers or those in support. After hearing all testimony and before a vote is taken, board members will be asked to openly discuss the evidence presented. And so you are aware, the variance or special use permits require 4 to 5 votes to be in favor of the petition for granting of the requested relief. The board members will be asked the board members will ask a lot of questions, and there's a good reason. We cannot grant just anything we choose. There are rules to follow per our South Kingstown's ordinance. You must give testimony to support certain facts to allow your request to be approved. Or in the case of those objecting, we need to have certain facts in order to see why it should be denied. Tonight we have dimensional variances and no special uses. So for variances, we must offer evidence. You must offer evidence to the board setting forth the following: that your hardship is due to the unique characteristics of the subject land or the structure. It is not due to the general characteristics of the surrounding area. The hardship is not the result of any prior action on your part. The granting of the variance will not alter the general character of the surrounding area. The relief requested is the least relief necessary. You must also show that the hardship that will be suffered if the variance is not granted will amount to more than a mere inconvenience. Jessica, do you want to let folks know what they will need to do to sort of make themselves known, or when we're ready to
Sure.
hear their petition?
Sure. So all of you in the immediate were here last week, but in the event there's anyone in attendance who wasn't, after the applicant gives his testimony, Mr. Chairman will ask if there is anyone in the audience who wishes to speak. At that point, you need to raise your hand to be given permission to speak. So on your computer, there is a raise hand function. If you hit the button, it'll automatically raise your hand. If you're calling in by phone, you're going to hit *9 to raise your hand, and then *6 will mute and unmute you. We take the attendees in the order in which their hands were raised, and you will be acknowledged when you are good to speak. A couple more things to keep in mind. There is a question and answer format on the bottom of your screen. That is to be used only if you're having technical difficulties. You don't want to use that to ask any questions about any of the applications tonight. They will not be answered in that format. The other thing is that all of the documents and all of the supporting documents are available to view online at southkingstownri.com. And if you search under current zoning applications, that'll show you everything that has been submitted for the petitions. That's really about it. We just ask that everyone speak clearly and state your name for people who may be on the phone. Thank you.
Thank you, Jessica. Is there anything else we need to go over, or should we just jump right in? We're good? Okay.
Start it.
The first petition for tonight is of Robert and Constance Booth, care of RCM Builders of 4 Ann Street, number 2, Westerly, Rhode Island, 02879, for a dimensional variance under the zoning ordinance as follows. The applicant is proposing to demolish the existing garage and construct a 30-foot by 25-foot detached garage with a storage room above. The garage will be located 16 feet from the property line. The required front yard setbacks is 25 feet. Relief of 9 feet is requested. The proposed lot coverage will be 21%. The maximum lot coverage allowed is 20%. Relief of 1% is requested. The structure will meet the height requirement of 20 feet. Lot size is 12,365 square feet. This dimensional variance is required per the zoning ordinance, section 208, non-conforming lots of record, accessory building setback requirements, section 401, schedule of dimensional regulations, and section 907, standards of relief. Owner of the property is Robert W. and Constance M. Booth for premises located at 133 Browning Street, assessors map 96-2, lot 32, and is zoned R30. And tonight for documents for 133 Browning Street, we have the application with Exhibit A narrative signed and dated December 20, 2020. Owner authorization form signed and notarized December of 2020. 200-foot radius map and a butters list. 1 page of elevation drawing, site plan, which was prepared by Pinch Land Surveying and Stephen M. Pinch. PLS dated December 21st, 2020, and then a photograph of the existing garage. And then there was the legal notice, proof of certified mailings, and the notarized affidavit of mailing. So who's here tonight for the 133 Browning Street?
That is me, Mark Viens, Markviens.
Okay, Mark. And are you speaking on behalf of the client?
I am speaking on behalf of RCM Builders, and I'm actually also a neighbor of the Booths.
And that are the owners here, or are they allowing you to speak?
No,
on
they
their
are
behalf?
not.
They are not. Okay.
They're allowing me to speak on their behalf.
And do we need anything from that, Jess? Do we have something authorizing that? Do we ever need something authorizing that?
We have the owner authorization form signed by RCM Builders as the authorized agent for the owner.
Perfect. So that's what that is. Okay, great. Thank you. Okay, Mr. Viens, are you going to be the only one speaking tonight?
Yes.
Okay.
I am going to be the only one
Um,
speaking. Again, I apologize for the background. I think the
Okay.
photo is the best way to start. Essentially, there is
Well,
a
before we
2 by
get started, I just want to make sure that you spell your name.
Okay. Mark Vians, M-A-R-K, V as in Victor, I-E-N-S.
Okay. And do you swear to tell the whole truth and nothing but the
Did you
truth?
get that?
Yeah, we got it a little
I
slowly,
do.
but we did get it. Do you swear
Okay.
to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay, great. So did you want Jessica to put up the photograph of the
Yes,
garage?
I think the photo is the best, it's worth 1,000 words.
Chairman, just before I do that, you may want to note that Attorney Asillo has left and Attorney Goins is now present.
Oh, yes,
Yes,
that is the case.
thank you for
Uh,
noting that for the record, Jess.
Thank you, Jessica.
Okay. So this is the existing structure.
Sorry.
This is the existing structure. It's approximately 24 by 20. It requires, the new structure will be approximately 25 by 30. This is very old 2x4 construction, 24 inches on center. It's essentially a knockdown and a rebuild on practically the same footprint to allow for the second story storage. And it really is impossible for the Boots to put any vehicles inside this garage. I think the picture speaks for itself.
And when you say almost, what do you mean by almost fits within the footprint?
I believe that it's going to go out an extra 5 feet in the back and an extra 6 feet in the front, from the original footprint. No closer to the road, and there's a request for an additional 1% of dimensional variance.
6 feet to the west, not to the Browning Street.
No, to the west. Yes, correct.
Okay.
Not to Browning Street. It'll have the same
not to Browning.
footprint on Browning.
Okay. So it's not going, like you said, it's not going any closer.
Nope. Just directly up.
Okay. Okay. Board members, any questions for Mr. Beans?
I have a couple, Mr. Chairman, Tom
Yes, sir, Mr.
Daniels.
Daniels.
Mr. Vans, what is the purpose of the second story? What's going to happen there?
It's a growing family, lots of grandchildren, children and grandchildren, and they need the extra storage. They can't store the cars and store their belongings, so they want to go to additional storage for the cars and additional storage above it.
Okay, no bedrooms, no bathrooms?
Nope. Nope.
Okay, and this is a non-conforming lot of record to begin with, is it not? Because of the setback?
I believe so, yes.
Okay, so you're not increasing the distance between Browning Street and the structure any?
Not at all.
Okay. And what's going to happen to the deck on the back of the house? Just curious. Does that remain?
It's hard for this picture to tell, but the deck of the house is actually in the space between the garage and the house, so it'll stay there.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I went by the property, but I don't remember, is this a detached garage?
Yes.
Okay, I couldn't remember. All right.
Yeah, I see what you mean. The deck looks like it's above the top of the garage in this photo, and it's not. There's actually a space there. Looks about maybe as much as 12 feet between the existing house and the garage.
Do the owners live here full time?
No, they live in Connecticut.
Okay. They have no intention of selling the property anytime
Not that I'm
soon?
aware of.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Daniels. Anyone else have questions for the applicant?
I just have one question. This is Bill Rosen.
Yes, sir.
Is the driveway going to be in exactly the same place, or is that going to be widened or something?
There's been no discussion about the driveway's location. I think it will have to shift it's still going to be a 2-car wide driveway as it is now, but I think it'll have to shift slightly to the right. So that then they put the doors in the middle of the structure. Right now, it's a little bit offset.
Okay. And where's the septic tank?
Septic's to the left of the front of the house.
Oh, okay, okay, thank you.
And Mr. Beans, the stormwater will all be managed on the site?
Yes.
Board members, any
Yeah.
other questions? Oh, go ahead. No? Okay. Anything else? Mr. Beans?
Nope, nothing else.
Okay. Is there anyone out in the audience? And if Jessica, you can just remind them how they make themselves known.
Again, if you're calling in by phone, which I don't see that anyone is, but it's *9 to raise your hand. *6 will mute and unmute. If you are on computer, hit the raise hand function and we will acknowledge you. And no one has.
Great. Board members, any other thoughts, discussion, or do you want to, someone want to make a motion?
Yeah, I'll move it.
Okay, Mr. Daniels?
I'll move the approval of the petition of Robert and Constance Booth, care of RCM Builders. The application was read clearly into the record by the chairman, and the associated documents are in order, and they were identified for the record by the chairman. This is a request for a dimensional variance. Mark Viens, who is a contractor for the owners, spoke before the board this evening and indicated that they'll be replacing an existing garage that is non-conforming to begin with regard to frontage on Browning Street, and that dimension will not be changed. There will be an additional dimension to the new garage at the rear and to the west, that's the southerly side, and to the westerly side, and thus the applicant requires a 1% change in lot coverage. Mr. Viens testified that the owners will be using the second story of the garage for storage only, and they have no intention of marketing the property and have no intention of doing anything but using the second story space for storage. The board finds that the hardship from which the applicant seeks relief is due to the unique characteristics of the subject land and structure, simply because there is no other area to place a garage on the property, and they are in effect replacing a substandard existing garage in basically the same footprint with adding 1% lot coverage with the new construction. The board finds that the hardship is not the result of any prior action of the applicant and does not result primarily from the desire of the applicant to realize a greater financial gain. It is a property that's owned by the folks who live in Westerly, and it's a summer residence. They have no intention of putting the property on the market for any financial gain. And this will simply add to the character of the existing property in that it will be an improvement of the existing garage, which presently is not usable for parking of two cars. The new garage, based on the site plan and based on the diagram submitted, will in fact allow for parking of two cars. The board finds that the granting of this variance will not alter the general characteristic of the neighborhood, because once again, there is an existing garage on the property and it will be upgraded, and many of the homes in the area have garages. The board finds that the relief to be granted is the least relief necessary, once again, because there is no other location upon which to place the new garage, and it will be consistent with an existing driveway. So the owners will have a beneficial use of what exists on the property. This approval is subject to no conditions. And with that, I will move passage.
Thank you, Mr. Daniels. Can I get a second?
I'll
Okay.
second that, Mark.
Second by Mr. Mark. Any other discussion? Mr. Daniels? Mr. Daniels?
Aye.
Yes. Mr. Mark?
Aye.
Mr. Rosen?
Aye.
Mr. Charkowik?
Aye.
Mr. Cagnetta? Aye. Motion passes. Good luck.
Thank you.
Thank you. You made it through.
Yes, we did.
Have a good night.
Good night.
Okay. Next, we have the petition of Sean Doherty of 60 Broad Rock Road, Wakefield, Rhode Island, 02879, for a dimensional variance under the zoning ordinance as follows. The applicant is seeking to elevate the existing dwelling in same location to comply with the floodplain elevation requirements. The proposed exterior stairs and entry deck will be located 7.4 feet from the side property line. The required side yard setback is 11 feet. Relief of 3.6 feet is requested. The first floor entry door will have a roof overhang located 32.7 feet from the front property line. The required front yard setback is 35 feet. Relief of 2.3 feet is requested. Lot size is 7,961 square feet. Dimensional variance is required per our zoning ordinance, section 207, non-conforming lots of record building setback requirements, and section 907, standards of relief. The owner of the property is Sean Doherty for premises located at 75 Middlebridge Road, South Kingstown, Rhode Island, 02879, assessors map 35-4, lot 97, and is zoned R20. For this petition, we have the documents of the exhibit A, which is the application, a narrative, signed and dated December 15th, 2020. The owner authorization form signed and notarized December 22nd, 2020. 200-foot radius map and a butters list, construction drawings of 11 pages, comprehensive boundary survey sheet, number 1, prepared by Christopher G. Palmer, PLS, dated December 15th, 2020. CRMC submission proposed site plan comprehensive boundary survey, which is sheet number 2, prepared by Christopher G. Palmer, PLS, dated December 15th, 2020. Proposed site plan comprehensive boundary survey, prepared by Christopher G. Palmer, PLS, dated December 15th, 2020. And then we also have the legal notice, proof of certified mailings, and notarized affidavit of mailing. And who is here tonight for this petition?
Sean Doherty, owner of the property.
Doherty. Okay. I'm sorry if I mispronounced.
No worries. I answer to anything that is said politely, and nobody gets it right. I've learned that over the 60 years of existence.
Doherty. Okay. And are you going to be speaking for yourself? Just, do you have others you're presenting?
Myself and Chris Palmer is here to represent me. I was just going to make a brief statement at the beginning and then turn it over to Chris primarily.
Okay. Well, why don't you start by spelling your name for us, Mr. Doherty?
My name is Sean, S-E-A-N, and Doherty is D-A-U-G-H-E-R-T-Y.
And do you swear to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay, Mr. Doherty. Go ahead. What would you like to say?
Great. So essentially, what my wife and I are trying to do is we're going to be moving into this property as our full-time residence once the renovation is complete. It's our dream home, and part of the renovation it involves elevating the property to get it in compliance with the current FEMA flood zone standards, while keeping and using the existing foundation and essentially the same footprint. Chris Palmer, to accomplish that, we are seeking dimensional relief for the stairway that will provide access to the home. And Chris Palmer is our engineer and is assisting and representing me in this process, so I'll turn it over to him.
Well, since you spoke, I just want to make sure that board members don't have questions for you, if that's okay.
Oh, sorry. Absolutely.
And I'll just start with one question. Is your house unique to this area? Or are there others that are different in height and so forth?
Oh, no, it's not unique at all. It's The house to the left is about the size, it's a little bit taller than the one that I will end up with if this is approved, and the one to the right is the same single-story construction. So it's a mixture in the neighborhood.
Okay, great. And board members, do you have any questions for Mr. Dougherty?
Yeah, Tom Daniels.
Mr.
Mr.
Daniels.
Doherty, are you expanding? Tell me again, are you expanding the footprint at all?
No, we have to, my understanding is we have to stay within the existing footprint relative to certain requirements in the area for CRMC. So we're using the exact same foundation. We're taking down the existing structure and building up from there.
Okay.
Any other board members' questions for Mr. Dougherty?
I had a quick question. As far as the floodplain, are you at or above the standards at, was it 17 feet? Or what's your base flood elevation?
We're not currently at that standard. That's part of the issue. We will be at that standard when we're done with the renovation. We'll be above that standard, I believe. Chris can speak to that more specifically.
Okay, great.
I guess I have one question.
Rosen? Yep,
You
go ahead.
said there's going to be a stairway added to so that you can get up to the second and third.
Mr. Palmer, I think Mr. Palmer is going to go through all that stuff in terms of design and.
Okay. I'll leave that until then.
Okay.
All right. So Mr. Palmer, do you want to say your name, spell it, and say your name and spell it?
Yes, it's Christopher Glenn Palmer, professional land surveyor. I'm located at 66 Falcon Ridge Drive, Exeter, Rhode Island. Christopher is CHRISTOPHER, Palmer, PALMER.
Okay. And you swear to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Great. So go ahead, tell us, give us a little more explanation as to design and why.
I was contacted to do a boundary survey, and I did a topography survey of the property, and it comes out the first floor elevation is at 10.2. The FEMA elevation requirement is at 11. The current house has a basement, and that elevation is at 2.57. So you can, at a mean high water mark of roughly 1.8, you can see if you have a little bit of a storm and it gets above, that elevation 4.5, it'll flood the house pretty easily. Due to the insurance requirements and the new FEMA requirements, Sean decided that it'd probably be better off for the property after we reviewed the coastal sea level rise documents that you're required to do for the CRMC applications. And it shows that with the 1 foot sea level rise, it's beneficial to get this property out of the floodplain as high as you possibly can for insurance purposes and mitigation of if we do have a hurricane or a catastrophic event. The applicant is proposing to keep the existing, use the existing foundation and since it'll be on piers, the first floor will be at 17.8. And using the existing grades, it'll be a drive under garage. You'll have breakaway walls as per the FEMA requirements. So you're basically going to put all the parking and stuff underneath the building rather than in the front of the building. The requirement for the stairs on the side is because you're going up to that elevation 17.8. You're going to need an ingress and egress into that building. And the side yard is the only practical way to do that appropriately. To put it in the back, you would be putting it up in closer to the coastal feature. The applicant, if you look, it's going to be a covered porch across the back, relatively in the same footprint with just a small addition, but there won't be anything underneath it. So it'll be just like the garage, if you look at the architectural drawings. We're proposing to meet all the drainage requirements per CRMC in the town. If you look at the site plan, there's 2 proposed bioretention areas that'll cover all of the impervious areas required for this. It is the existing lot coverage is 17.2%. The proposed lot coverage is 20, so you're looking at 2.8% increase. That's due, and that includes all the stairs and everything. Currently, you'll see that there is a stairwell in the front of the existing building on sheet 1, the existing, and we're only proposing a small cantilever over the a doorway in between the garage for shelter. That's why we're asking for the relief from the front. The existing stairwell is currently a lot closer to the front yard than the proposal.
Okay. Is that it?
Yeah, that pretty much, it's a unique piece of property. And the client wants to bring it up to today's standards without infringing upon the neighbors. So if you look even at the 35-foot height, it is going to be from the garage floor level. So it's not going to be from the floodplain level as allowed by the zoning ordinance now. So we're trying to keep the characteristics of the neighborhood.
Okay. So you're going to be within the height restriction.
Yes.
You're going to be you're going to be less in the front because of the stairway.
Yes.
Existing stairway is out farther. The footprint of the building is the same, of the foundation is the same, but the back porch is going to be different.
Yes, a little bit different. If you look at the existing plan, we're going to eliminate it. It's just going to square it off in the back.
But you're not asking for anything in the back.
No relief. No. That'll be at CRMC because there may be some questions of roof. So if that needs to cut back, but we're not asking for any relief for dimensional relief for that portion of it.
So we're asking for a little bit in the front and the stairway on the side.
Yes, for access.
Okay. And so why can't the stairway just go one way? Why does it need to go both ways?
That was the client wanted that just so he could have an easy access down to the dock in the backyard.
Okay. Board members, questions for Mr. Palmer? No? Okay.
Chairman, Mr. Chairman, I just have one question. Just
Yeah, Mr. Charkowicz.
I'm just curious how the proposed structure will compare to the existing house, which is to the left, to the left of the property in question. That one looks like it was elevated. Will it be similar to that one?
Yeah, so
To the
they
neighbor on the left,
approach
yes.
by doing a fill situation. They have a wall on if you look at the site plan, there's a retaining wall. They chose to fill the property. We're not proposing to fill the property. We're proposing to use the existing grades as and complement it by driving our cars underneath it. So instead of keeping our parking in front of the building and gaining more storage, we're choosing to put the buildings underneath it, the cars underneath it.
Okay. Thank you.
Question for the applicant, Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead, sir.
Tom Daniels. Mr. Doherty, you said this is your dream home. You plan to live here full time? Is that?
Yes, I spend about half my year in Rhode Island. The other half of the year I spend either in Florida or visiting grandchildren in Colorado.
Okay.
But yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other board members, questions for either Mr. Palmer or the owner, Mr. Dougherty? No? Okay. Do you guys have anything to add? If not, we'll ask the folks.
The only thing I will add is that we do need a CRMC permit, and since CRMC is a little backwards than DEM, we have to get zoning before we can apply to CRMC. I just want to make that aware for the record that we will be applying for the CRMC permit right after this hearing.
And I believe we get 2 years, is going for
Correct. Under
approvals?
section 908, it would be a 2-year expiration as opposed to the typical 1-year expiration date for the permit. So if you deem it appropriate, whoever makes the motion, please note that.
So that should be enough time, right? For you guys to get through everything? Okay. All right. Jessica, is there anyone out there that wishes to speak on this matter by raising their hands?
No one has raised their hand.
Board members, any other questions for the applicant or the engineer, or any discussion of any sort? Just to let you know, I did stop by there. And as Mr. Dougherty said, on the left side, it's pretty much what they want to do. On the right side, it's pretty much what they have. So they're not getting any closer. All the buildings are set back kind of the same. So it's not going to be a significant change to the neighborhood. So I'm okay with it. So if someone wants to make a motion, if there's no discussion,
Sure, I'll make a motion.
Mr. Mark.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the petition of Sean Doherty. Petition as read in by the chairman. We heard from Mrs. Doherty and Chris Palmer, his engineer. We went with the materials that were entered into the record, the application, the site plan, and the elevation drawings. And to make it short and sweet, the board finds that the hardship from which this appellant seeks relief is due to the unique characteristics of the subject land or structure and not the general characteristics of the surrounding area, and is not due to a physical or economic disability of the applicant. Because the soon-to-be former structure was non-conforming, according to 207 in that area. It's a tight, non-conforming area of setbacks in general. The board finds that the hardship is not the result of any prior action of the applicant and does not result primarily from the desire of the applicant to realize greater financial gain. As Mr. Doherty said, he intends to make that his dream home. And the house also comes up to FEMA standards for floodplain, which is very nice. The board finds that the granting of the requested variance will not alter the general character of the surrounding area or impair the intent or purpose of the zoning ordinance or the comprehensive plan upon which the ordinance is based, because it's the same use. And again, it's bringing it up to today's standards. And as anyone has gone by and seen what's existing there structure-wise, as the chairman mentioned, to the left is what he wants to be, to the right, what he was. The board finds that the relief to be granted is the least relief necessary, because the relief itself is for a stairway, and for a structure that's staying in the same footprint, I would deem it the least relief necessary. The board finds that the hardship suffered by the owner of the subject property, if the dimensional variance is not granted, amounts to more than a mere inconvenience, because given the current climate considerations, to not to build up would be unwise in this case. Approval for this is subject to the following conditions under 908, which is a 2-year expiration of moving forward. So with that, I vote to approve.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Daniels. Is there any other discussion by board members? No. Mr. Mark?
Aye.
Mr. Daniels?
Aye.
Mr. Rosen?
Aye.
Mr. Charkowik?
Aye.
Mr. Cagnetta? Aye. Motion passes. Good luck.
Thank you,
Thank you
Mr.
very
Chairman
much.
and board members.
Thank you. Good luck.
Much appreciated.
All right. So last on the agenda, we have the petition of Matthew and Jean Marie Leonard of 68 Potter Road, Wakefield, Rhode Island, 02879, for a dimensional variance under the zoning ordinance as follows. The applicant is seeking to construct a 21-foot by 24-foot detached garage with studio above and 10 by 10 storage area to the rear. The garage will be located 6 feet from the front property line. The required front setback is 25 feet. A relief of 19 feet is requested. The garage will also be located 6 feet from the side property line. The required yard setback is 20 feet. Relief of 14 feet is requested. The lot size is 27,320 square feet. The dimensional variance is required per the zoning ordinance, section 208, non-conforming lots of record, accessory building setback requirements, section 401, the schedule of dimensional regulations, and section 907, standards of relief. The owner of the property is Matthew J. and Jean Marie Leonard for premises located at 68 Potter Road, South Kingstown, Rhode Island. Assessors map 87-2, lot 124, and is zoned R80. So for documents, we have quite a few documents for this application. We have the application with the A narrative signed and dated December 20th, 2020, the owner authorization form signed and notarized December 10th, 2020, site plan prepared by Easterbrooks and Associates LLC and stamped by Amy Sonder PLS dated October 14th, 2020, construction documents prepared by Leslie Architects dated October 8th, 2020, and a 200-foot radius map and a butters list vision appraisal. And field card map 87-2, lot 24. Letter regarding change of attorney from Mr. Kenyon dated January 11th, 2021. The legal notice, proof of certified mailings, and notarized affidavit of mailing. The applicant's exhibits, photos, exhibits 1 through 11, and GIS exhibits 12 through 15. The first is the proposed garage location. Second is the location of the gray truck with the gray truck. The third photograph is the location showing the wide view. Fourth is the house from the water. 5 is the abutter, Sirio of 95 Old Succotash Road. 6 is the Donnell 46 Potter Road. The abutter, and number 7 is the abutter Anderson of 141 Old Succotash Road. Number 8 is the abutter Fiasconero of 33 Potter Road. 9 is the abutter of their garage, the Mazda of 55 Potter Road, and number 10 is an abutter garage, Sampanero of 34 Potter Road. So 5 through 10 were different garages of the neighborhood. 11 is a letter of support from Daniel to Hanson for the project in the fall of 2020. 12 is a 2000 aerial photo, 2006 rather, I'm sorry, aerial photo from the South Kingston GIS. 13 is a 2000 of the same aerial photo. The other is 2018 aerial photo. The 15 is the 2020 aerial photo. 16 is the FEMA's National Flood Insurance Program Community Rating System. 17 is an additional, 17 and 18 are additional photos. We have correspondences in favor from Mr. John Hanson, 73 Potter Road, which was received January 15th, 2021. We have Christine and Michael Anderson of 141 Old Succotash Road, which was received January 19th, 2021. Tammy and Frank Mazza of 55 Potter Road received January 20, 2021. And then those opposed, we have a correspondence from attorney Stephen Sardut, representing 46 Potter Road, received January 20th, 2021. And we have objectors, photos, exhibits 1 through 6. So with that, who is here tonight for this application?
Mr. Chairman, good evening, members of the Zoning Board of Review. This is Attorney Margaret Hogan from Hogan & Hogan of Charlestown, Rhode Island. And with me this evening are the applicants, Matthew and Jean Marie Leonard, Nancy Leslie, the architect, and Amy Sonder, the land surveyor and designer of the site plan.
Okay. And so how would you like to proceed?
Mr. Chairman, first, I'd like to just make one housekeeping correction on Exhibit 13. The chairman mistakenly indicated that that was a 2000 aerial. It's actually from 2011. So I
Correct.
just want to correct the
Thank
record
you.
for that.
There was,
Thank
yeah, and I also didn't mention, that's why I went back to say 5 through 10 were various garages, because I didn't say that in every one. So thank you for noting that.
Appreciate that. So with the board's indulgence, what I would like to do this evening would be able to put on my entire case. I'm going to be leading with Mr. Leonard, and then I'll be following with Amy Sonder and Nancy Leslie. So I'd like to put on the entire case and hold questions if the chair is so inclined. I think that a lot of the questions that the board might have after one witness can be answered by the others that are coming.
We'll do our best to
Okay.
hold off. Yep, absolutely.
Great. So before I have Mr. Leonard sworn, I will indicate that despite efforts, we have been unable to reach an accommodation with the abutting property owners, Charles and Rebecca Donnell, who have objected to the proposal through their attorney. And Mr. Surdett and I have had conversations. Unfortunately, we weren't able to resolve it. So we are proceeding in full this evening.
Okay.
And then I will call Mr. Leonard as my first witness.
Mr. Leonard, where are you, Mr. Leonard? Okay, great. And Mr. Leonard is being presented as a witness, right? Not as an expert.
That's correct.
Okay, so Mr. Leonard, could you please spell your name?
Matthew, M-A-T-T-H-E-W, John, J-O-H-N, Leonard, L-E-O-N-A-R-D.
Okay, and do you swear to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Great. So go ahead, Ms. Hogan.
Can the board hear him okay? I thought it was a little faint.
It's a little faint, but I can hear. If you can get a little closer, maybe that'll help.
Will do.
Great. Okay, Mr. Leonard, you and your wife own the subject property at 68 Potter Road, but it is titled in a trust. Is that correct?
We do own the property, yes.
Okay, and it is titled actually in a trust.
I'm not sure about that, to be honest with you.
Okay, we'll proceed. Do you reside in the dwelling?
We do.
Okay, very good. And you and your wife reside in the dwelling, is that correct?
That is correct.
And how many members of your family are there?
My wife, myself, and my son. My oldest son is here temporarily.
Okay, but in general, you have 4 boys, do you not?
We do have 4 boys, yes.
All young adults?
Yes, they are.
All right, very good. Now, you and your wife purchased this property in 2004, is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, and would you explain to the board why you selected this particular house?
Well, we don't live too far away. We didn't live too far away. Our home was in South County Hills, just about a mile away. We came down and looked at it, and it was a beautiful spot at the end of a gravel road. And I had terrific views out sort of to the west over the pond, and then all the way down to down the pond out to Block Island. And we just sort of fell in love with the property and purchased it in 2004.
And after your purchase, how did you utilize the dwelling?
We used it like in the summertime mostly. My mom and dad, when my dad was alive, they would use it for a month. My brother would use it with his family. My brother-in-law would use it with his family. And we had some friends that used it on and off. We also rented the property largely in the summertime. There were a couple of winter rentals, but for the most part, it was the summertime. And when we rented the property, because we lived so close, we always utilized the property in the dock. We had a boat and stuff.
Okay, very good. And now the home that was on the property when you purchased it, that has now been replaced, has it not?
It has.
Okay. And the prior home, during the time frame that you owned it, you secured a number of CRMC permits for that, correct?
That's correct. It was an older home. It was 3 bedrooms, but it was an old salt box. It didn't have a foundation. It was didn't have a basement. It was on a cement sort of footings, but it needed work. So we did have to go to CRMC when we did work on the home.
And did you recall you got a permit in 2004 for an ISDS repair? That's a septic.
That's correct. When we bought the house, the septic failed, so it needed to be fixed.
Okay. And then in 2005, you put a dock in, correct?
That's right.
Okay. And in 2010, yeah, you also pulled a permit for maintenance on a roof repair. Is that correct?
That's accurate, yes.
Okay. And then your next permit from CRMC was in 2016 to replace the dwelling. Do you recall that?
Yes,
Okay. And that's and also included the installation of a new septic permit, and they changed the initials from ISDS back in the day to a new one called OWTS. So that was in 2016. You recall that?
I think the septic approval was 2007, I believe.
Well, the CRMC approval was in 2016. We'll get to the actual approval of the septic system by DEM.
Oh, you're talking about when it was finally approved to begin construction?
Correct.
Okay,
Yes.
yes. I'm
Yes.
sorry, I misunderstood.
Okay. So you decided at some point then to tear down the existing dwelling, which had at that point, based upon your testimony, was functionally obsolescent, and you decided to replace with something new, correct?
That's right.
Okay. And in doing so, what steps did you undertake to ascertain what would be required in the way of permitting and the like?
Well, we started to try to figure it out, on our own. What would we be able to do? We were asking questions to a bunch of people, but it was complicated, and we learned about things like flood zones and wind zones and FEMA regulations and CRMC regulations, and we quickly kind of figured out that we were out of our league and we needed to hire experts to kind of help us determine, what we could do with the property.
And who did you select?
Amy Saunder.
Okay, and we're going to hear some testimony from her in a little while. So as you went through that process, do you recall whether or not you required or asked for any relief from any agency for any aspect of your design prior to this application to the zoning board?
We did not.
And you're sure about that?
Yes.
Okay. And you also secured the services of an architect, is that correct?
That's correct.
And they work together, is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. So during that process, were you able to secure a LOMA from Federal Emergency Management Agency?
We were.
Okay, and we're going to have Ms. Saunder talk about that a little bit later on. And the benefit of that is that it pulls your property out of the flood zone. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And as a result of that LOMA, that has an incremental benefit to the entire town of South Kingstown via the community rating. Is that your understanding?
That's what's been explained to me, yes.
All right, very good. So let's talk about the application itself. You've proposed a 21 by 24 single car garage with storage, correct?
That's correct.
And there's an internal staircase proposed to a space above that has been delineated as a studio.
That's correct.
And that is a large open room with a lavette, correct?
That's correct.
All right. And you also are proposing and requesting an attached shed for lawnmower and garden equipment and things of that nature, correct?
That's accurate, yes.
Okay. And it is your position, is it not, that there isn't any other location on the property where you could construct this garage? Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Explain to the board very briefly, where is your septic located?
The septic is located in the drive.
Okay, so when you drive in, you're actually on top of the septic system, is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, and thus you're able to utilize that space not only below ground, but above ground, correct?
Yes.
All right. Now, Mr. Leonard, there's been an objection filed, as you well know, relative to the proposal. And there's been a number of suggestions in the letter of objection, some of which I'd like to go over with you, and some of those that I would go over with Ms. Sonder shortly. Pardon me. There's an allegation or suggestion, if you will, that you've made a number of applications to the CRMC, and I've been over several of them with you to date. And so it's a fair statement that, in fact, you have made a number of applications to CRMC, correct?
Yeah, I would say when we were required to go and get an approval from CRMC, we did so, whether it was replacing shingles on the roof or anything having to do with this project.
Okay. And do you recall just the most recent one in 2019, which was what's called a FONSI, a finding of no significant impact for landscaping?
I do. I mean, I'm not an expert on that, but I do.
That's okay. Yeah, just if you recall it. And there was one before that in 2017. There's actually a permit for the bathhouse as an accessory structure. You recall that?
That's correct.
Okay, so is it fair to say then that you have complied with all of the regulations from CRMC as regards to your property?
To the best of my knowledge, yes.
Okay. Now, there's also been a suggestion that, and an inference, if you will, that the property is, there's too much on it, and that you've overbuilt it, and this is your own fault. So I'm going to take you through the allegations there. So you have a 4,000 square foot house according to the tax card. However, the footprint is not a 4,000 square foot footprint, is it?
No, it's not.
Okay. And what was your understanding as to what the nature of the footprint must be under current regulations? If you know, and if not, I'll ask Amy.
No, I don't know. I mean, we got counsel from both Nancy and Amy as it relates to the footprint being in compliance.
Okay. And is your understanding, though, that there was an issue in regards to that, correct?
There was an issue or there wasn't an issue?
That you needed to comply with a particular footprint requirement, correct?
That's correct, yes.
Okay. And what else is on the property besides the dwelling currently?
Currently, there's a screened pool house being constructed.
And do you know the approximate size of that?
It's under 200 square feet. I think it's like around 13 by 15. I don't have the exact dimensions, but.
Okay. Go ahead. Anything else?
And there's a small bathhouse to be constructed as well in the same general area. That, I think the footprint on that is about 7 by 7, but Nancy can correct that when she speaks.
Okay. And are there any other sheds or outbuildings on the property?
There are not. There used to be actually a large shed. It was 10 by 20, close to the area that we're talking about here for the garage.
It was along that back property line, but maybe a further in, correct?
Yes, it was. It was
okay.
Along the back line, yeah.
And there's been a suggestion that you recently applied for a septic permit to increase the number of bedrooms from 3 to 4. You remember reading that?
I do remember reading that.
Okay. And is that a fact?
No, it's not.
Okay. And is that something that you can speak to further, or is that an Amy question?
It's probably best for Amy. That's her area of expertise.
That's very good. Now, in your neighborhood, the road that leads, so the driveway / road that leads to your home, can you tell us what its status is as far as, is it a town road? Is it a private road? What is its status?
It's a private road that's owned by Christine and Mike Anderson, who live at the top of the road. They have road frontage, but I think their address is actually Old Succotash Road. And they own the road, which essentially consists of, maybe a 10-foot gravel drive, and then there's grass shoulders on each side of the road. And their property starts at Old Succotash Road and goes all the way to the water. As it gets past our, sort of down near our house, it opens up a bit, but it's generally 20 feet down the road. And I'm not sure about the rest of the neighbors, but we have a deeded right of way down the road.
Okay, so for any board members who haven't, perhaps haven't traveled down the road, or maybe have only looked at this online or not sure, the road dead ends at the water, does it not?
Yes, it does.
Okay.
Or
And-
let me say it a different way. The Anderson's property dead ends at the water.
Pardon me?
The Anderson's property dead ends at the water. The road, I'm not sure where it actually ends. It turns into grass. And
Okay. You're not going to drive off the road into the water, though?
No.
Okay, all right. That I was inarticulate in my question. I apologize. And so the folks who own the road, are they one of the folks who have submitted a letter of support for your application?
They have, yes.
Okay. And now as we're coming down the road and approaching your property, we're going to pass the Donnell property on the left-hand side immediately before we reach your property. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And so traveling down to as far as your property, the Donnells don't need to do that in order to access their own property. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And then for the folks who do need to travel down that same gravel roadway, have we heard from them in regards to your application?
Yeah, Frank and Tammy Mazza, who live essentially across the street from where we're proposing to put the garage, have sent in a letter of support. As well, the Hansons, who are the last house on the road on the right, who were before the board for dimensional relief in October, also submitted a letter of support. And essentially, those are the three residents that really will be passing by the driveway. By the garage.
All right, so let's go back to the garage. So we've already indicated that it's a one-car garage, not a two-car garage, correct?
That's correct.
All right, and it's got some storage on the inside because you have a variety of outdoor equipment. Is that a fair statement?
Yeah, kayaks and paddle boards and things like that.
Okay. There's also a proposed interior staircase, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And then there's upstairs, and we spoke about that earlier. What is the proposed use for the upstairs space of the garage?
We'd like to use it as for my wife, as an art studio, as the kids sort of get older and move on, and she likes to paint, and she'd like to do that again up there.
Okay. And there's been a suggestion / allegation, if you will, that there may be an intent on your part to rent that out or turn it into residential property. What do you have in response to that?
That is not our intention. The allegation was it was going to be a rental or an Airbnb or used for students. This is our home, and that's absolutely not our intention.
Okay. I think I don't have any additional questions for Mr. Leonard at this time. My next witness would be Amy Sonder.
Okay, just to check, as long as board members don't have any pressing things, we'll make a note of things we'd like to ask Mr. Leonard perhaps, but go forward.
You need to swear her.
Oh, well, is she being in as an expert or is she,
Yes.
okay. Spell your name for the record, please.
Yes, my name is Amy Sonder, Amysonder.
Okay, and you swear to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Okay. Ms. Sonder, you've been in front of this board before?
Yes, I have.
Okay, and you've presented yourself as an expert in your field?
Yes, as a land surveyor and site designer, yes.
Okay, great. So you will be recognized as such. So go ahead, Ms. Hogan.
Thank you, Mr. Cagnetta. If I could very, very briefly, because there is an objection on the record, I would like to do a very brief voir dire with Ms. Sonder, if I could, please.
Please.
Thank you. Ms. Sonder, what is your education, please?
I have a degree and bachelor's degree, and I'm a licensed professional land surveyor.
Okay, what is your degree in, please?
Geography and land planning.
And for how long have you been a licensed land surveyor?
25 years.
All right. And has the bulk of your practice been conducted in the South County area?
Yes, it has.
Okay. And the chairman has already indicated that you've been accepted as an expert before the South Kingstown Zoning Board of Review on prior occasions. Do you have any estimate as to how many times you might have appeared?
Oh, boy.
More than 20?
Yeah, more than 20, yes.
More than 30?
Probably, yes, probably 30 to 50 times, I would say.
All right. And have you appeared in similar, in surrounding towns for a similar number of applications?
Yes, I have.
Okay, and that would be Narragansett?
Yes, Narragansett. North
And
Kingstown.
other municipalities?
Yes.
Very good, thank you. So, and I'm going to move on now, Mr. Chairman. Ms. Sonder, you're familiar with the subject property, correct?
Yes, I am.
Okay, and when did you first become engaged in work for the Leonards in connection with this property?
In 2007 to design a septic system.
Okay, let's talk about the septic system. What type of septic system is it and how many bedrooms is it approved for?
Well, we were proposing to do a septic system design for an alteration, meaning they were doing renovations and or a new construction to the home. It was a 3-bedroom at the time, and we were proposing to put a new system. This is in a critical resource area, thereby they require you to do a pretreatment system, and we were proposing a pretreatment system for a 4-bedroom dwelling. It was noted earlier that it was a 3-bedroom dwelling, but when you're doing a pretreatment system, there are almost always 4 bedrooms anyway. So this was being proposed for a 4-bedroom system, which would be a 1-bedroom alteration.
All right. But for this particular dwelling unit, it was always proposed to be a 4-bedroom. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And there was not a change in 2017, correct?
No, it was designed as a 4-bedroom in 2007, approved in 2008.
Okay. There were several years, though, between the approval and its installation. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. And what was the nature of that delay, if you will?
I think we had done some planning. There was also things going on with the critical resource area and increasing flows on the pond. And I think we put this into a design to renovate the house, and then they held off construction. I'm not exactly sure the reason why at that time. It's been a while.
But the permit was actually maintained through the state's tolling statutes, correct?
Correct. Yep. It maintained status and actually was allowed to go through the entire process of planning for this new dwelling.
Okay, so you mentioned the pre-treatment component of this system. Could you describe, what's that about and where is it located?
Okay. One of the things that South Kingstown required at the time was 150-foot setback from the coastal feature for any septic systems. And pre-treatment means that you take the liquid, the effluent of the septic system, and you treat it prior to it going into the leaching field. So we had proposed this Advantex pretreatment system. There are many different kinds. At that time, this was widely used and still widely used. And then we proposed to go into what are called shallow galleys. And that's the system we have now. The benefit of a shallow galley system is you can actually drive over it, and it can be put in a driveway location, which benefits this property because you can actually use it for a driveway, obviously, in a leach field and not have to take up 2 areas of space. I can't hear you, Maggie.
Yeah.
Did we lose her?
Wait, no, I think she's just still on mute.
I apologize. I muted myself. Look at that.
It's okay.
A lawyer that does that. Woo, that's rare.
You're gonna have to start over, Mag, sorry.
Okay, where was I? Where'd you catch? Where'd I lose
I
you?
think we were talking about using it for 2 areas. I can use this leaching for septic leaching, and they were able to drive over the system.
All right, great. Thank you. I apologize. So there's been a suggestion on the record that the applicant chose this type of system, speculated that it was a less costly basis, and that's why they did it. Did your client instruct you to design the least costly system?
No, this is not, I can't say that it is one way or another. It's probably about the same cost as any other leaching system. I would highly recommend this to any one of my clients if they have the ability to put in a below ground system and utilize it under the driveway. I've done it myself at my own property, and I would have recommended anybody else to do it.
Very good. Thank you. Okay, so Mr. Leonard intimated in his testimony that it quickly became too overwhelming for them to try and figure out the permitting requirements for this property. Can we walk through, please, for the board, what were the limitations or the constraints to development, if you will, for this lot?
Well, first off, we had the site constraints of Coastal Resources, which requires a 75-foot setback from the coastal feature. And we also have a site that had 3 flood zones in it. It went from a velocity zone along the shoreline, an AE zone in the middle, and then on the high side, it was actually a C at that time, or an X zone, which is out of the flood zone. So we had that as a site constraint. And then, as I mentioned earlier, you had the 150-foot setback for the leaching field. And then also with the coastal resource, when you are doing redevelopment on a site, one of the criteria that we always try and maintain is to not increase more than 50% of the dwelling structure. That allows it to be reviewed by staff. They're in much more agreement as to knowing that we've worked hard to not increase the footprint of the site. And so those were many, and I'm sure not all of the site constraints we had here.
Did you work with CRMC, closely with this design? Could you explain to the board?
Yes, I always, in the early stages, we'll do a preliminary plan, footprint, a layout, and I will work closely with Coastal Resource staff to make sure that we're in compliance and have a favorable recommendation so that we know that we don't have to go beyond staff to a full council hearing. I mean, I don't think I've ever gone to full council. I'll always recommend to my clients to try and stay within their guidelines so that we do not have to do that. So yes, we do work closely with Coastal.
So going to the full council mean you'd be requesting a variance?
A substantial variance, yes.
Okay, all right. And so we didn't do that?
No.
Okay. So referring to your site plan, Is it possible to put that up on the screen, or do you guys see that from where you are, or?
I can bring it up for you. Just give me one moment.
That would be great. Thank you so much. Ooh, it's kind of hard to see.
I have one on my end, so I can read
Getting
it.
better.
also.
Okay, awesome. So, somebody's a master at this. Good job. All right, Amy, let's, can you explain to the board, you know, by reference, sort of where those flood lines were and what transpired during the course of this project that that resulted in an improvement to that?
Okay, so as you're looking at the map, we'll go from the shore towards the inland side there. So you have a coastal feature, and then we have a 75-foot setback, which is, that's a arced line, which you can show, which follows along the shoreline there, which goes right directly through that assessor's plat and lot number. And then as you go landward again, there
Amy, can I
is.
stop you for just a moment?
Sure.
So that line that we're talking about, is it got like a dashed line with like little cross hatches coming off of it?
Correct.
Okay, and it travels from, it shows on the map also on the Donnell property and the Anderson property adjacent to this lot. Is that correct?
Yes, it does.
Okay, great. Go ahead further
Yeah.
inland.
And as we go further inland, there's another line that crosses through the middle of the site, and it's hard to see, but it refers to the V zone. So that is, excuse me, the velocity line, which is, if people are familiar with the FEMA regulations, this is a high hazard, flood hazard area. You know, you really, if you can not build in that area, you do not want to build in that area. So we do all we can to move landward of that line when we are doing construction.
Now, does that line originate directly above your stamp?
Yes, it does.
Okay,
Very good.
and then it goes, travels across the property again, both abutting properties as well, correct?
Correct.
All right,
Yeah.
and it looks like the house is tucked in just behind that line, correct?
Yes, just behind that line. It does go through, it looks like a retaining wall, but that's, the structure is on the inland side of that.
All right, very good. And then keep going.
Yep, and then, so the house is landward of the velocity zone line, and then we have the coastal feature jurisdiction setback, which is abutting seaward of the proposed garage, and you can see it says coastal feature 200-foot setback there, and that's the arced line right next to the garage. So those are the jurisdictional areas. I also do show the dwelling setbacks on there, which are very faint, but they follow the property line on the inland part of that. And I'm not sure, Maggie, did you want me to get into detail as to what we did?
Yes, so during the construction process, an opportunity arose in regards to the floodplain, did it not?
Yes.
All right,
So
describe for the board what happened there.
okay, so when looking at this site, and we were, you know, right in the middle of working with the architect and everybody full, ready to go, we realized with flood constraints and things that were happening that you can do what's called a LOMA F application. So what you do is you fill the land area and you actually pull the site out of the flood zone and apply to FEMA. So what we did was we filled the land around the dwelling structure to actually raise it out of the flood zone. So it was no longer in any flood hazard area. It was in a flood zone X, which is still a flood area, but minimal impact to anybody, to the point where the insurance is not required. The town does not have to mitigate for these properties. So we did that in, I think, 2017 to 18 and received the LOMA approval.
And was that also with the knowledge, pardon me, was that also with the knowledge of Coastal Resources?
Actually, that is more with the knowledge through the building officials. I worked with the building department, engineers, but Coastal Resource does not have jurisdiction over LOMAs. It's handled by the federal government and the town.
Coastal wouldn't object to a property home being taken out of a flood zone though, would it?
No, they do not. And actually since then, since this application was reviewed by FEMA, Coastal has started working with these impacts and actually encourages this to be done. So that's part of their new regulation. So yes, if it was under review by Coastal now, this would be very looked at favorably.
And is it your understanding that the town derives a benefit from the properties being removed, an incremental benefit from being removed from the flood areas?
Yes, their flood rating gets better with each site that gets removed.
We have submitted actually a FEMA document that talks about the community rating, correct?
Yes.
All right. Now, Amy, I want to draw your attention to the septic system that's on site. And it's, well, you know where it is.
Yeah.
I'll draw your attention to the septic system. Immediately to the right of the septic system, when you first look at this, you know, an untrained eye would say, well, why don't you put the garage over there? Why can't we do that?
Well, a septic system has setbacks. You know, you have to have 15 feet to a full foundation, 8 feet to a slab foundation. And also in this situation, when you're using a pretreatment system, they allow you to reduce the leaching field by 50%. But you have to accommodate, although it very rarely gets used, we do have to accommodate for the remaining 50% of the leach field somewhere on site. So it's not shown on this site plan, but on the septic approval, you can see that I did in 2007. There's a similar half of this footprint showing to the right of that leaching field that has to remain as a viable option in the event this leaching field fails. It's called an alternate area.
All right, so it's a backup, basically.
Correct.
It's not currently in use, but it has to remain available for use. Is that correct?
Yes, it does.
Okay. And would you be able to construct a foundation around it, over it?
No, you can't construct a foundation over it, no.
Okay, all right. And there's also another constraint in regards to this coastal setback, is that correct?
Well, correct. We're squeezed in, you know, by maintaining that 150 from the shoreline and then the setbacks from the structures. This is the best option for the leaching field.
Okay. So I don't know if you were on, but there was an application, I think it was right before us, or it could have been two before us, and they were talking about raising the property up and putting the garage underneath. Could we have put a garage underneath this dwelling unit in the flood zone area?
If we did, we would be negating all of the work we did for the LOMA. It would trigger the flood zone because the FEMA is regulated by the ground elevation around the house. So if you excavated to put a garage below, it would void anything we did for the LOMA.
So it would put it back in a flood zone?
Correct.
Okay. Have you cited this proposed structure in a manner to be seeking the least relief necessary. Is there any other way to structure this project and seek a lesser amount of relief?
We've worked tirelessly with these all kinds of professionals to make this site the way it is and fit all the required components on site. So I would have to say we've exhausted all resources to make this site work.
Okay, so one of the questions that I've had is well, if why can you put the cabana on the property inside the coastal resource setback and not the garage?
Okay, so in Coastal's review, there is no impact to the site if the structure is under 200 square feet or less than 200 square feet. So the cabana is 193 square feet and the bathhouse is 49 square feet. They are separate structures, thereby there is no impact to the site as far as Coastal Resources is concerned.
Okay.
There is, there is a review, by the way. We did do that, maintenance permits and submitted the insignificant alteration permits. There is a review, but there is no impact.
Right, that would be the permit in 2017 08-026 for the bathhouse accessory structure, correct?
Yes.
All right, very good. You weren't involved in the landscaping one, were you? Or was
I was, yes.
you were?
And that was the reconfiguration of the driveway.
Okay. Just let me check my notes for just a moment, please. I think I have finished, unless you think of something here that I have missed. I think I've covered.
No, but I'll be here if you have any more questions.
All right, so then we can take the site plan down for the exhibit. And Mr. Chairman, I would move next to Ms. Leslie.
Okay. Ms. Leslie, could you please spell your name, say and spell your name? Wait,
You're mute.
the mute.
You're still mute, Nancy.
Okay.
There we go.
Here, good.
Yep. So please
Nancy
say and spell your name. Yep.
Nancy Leslie, Leslie.
And do you swear to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay. Go ahead, Ms.
Thank
Ms.
you.
Hogan. Yep.
Ms. Leslie, what is your occupation, please?
I'm an architect.
Okay, and for how long have you been an architect?
I've been registered for 30 years.
Okay, in the state of Rhode Island?
Yes.
Okay, and during those 30 years, you've engaged in the practice?
Yes.
All right, and roughly, any idea how many homes you've designed over those timeframe?
We've done over 500 projects in Rhode Island.
Okay, and of those projects, how many of those, if you know, might have involved coastal properties such as this one?
The majority.
All
Most
right,
of our
very
homes
good.
are done on the water.
All right, very good, thank you. So you were the I'm going to move Ms. Leslie as an expert in architecture.
She has been in front of this board before, and she has been recognized as an expert. So,
Thank you. All right, Ms. Leslie, you've been involved with this project for how long, please? God bless you.
Since 2016, I believe, or maybe
All right.
even earlier.
Okay, and
Like
what were
a good 3 or 4 years.
all right, very good. What were the site limitations as far as architecture were concerned?
It was a very challenging site. It's a non-conforming lot, so the lot itself was very small. The if you can see that it's a little bit pie shaped, so you're trying to get as much width in the house as possible, but because the lot is pie shaped, you're getting reduced as you make it bigger. So that was a constraint. And all of the issues that Amy brought up, every square inch that you took from one spot, you had to add to another because we were limited to the 50%. And they have 4 kids, so we're trying to get 4 bedrooms, and one child is actually missing a bedroom. So the size of the rooms isn't really, they're fairly modest. In fact, one of the bedrooms is 10'3" by 12 feet. And another bedroom is 13 by 10. So we were very limited in square footage. We utilized all 3 stories to get the square footage that we needed for the house. And so because of that, I believe our lot coverage will be around 10%, including the garage.
The overall lot coverage? Correct?
Yes.
All right. And is that, and what is permitted in the zone? Do you know?
20%.
Okay, so we're at half of what the lot coverage could be if we didn't have site constraints. Is that correct?
Correct.
All right, very good. Do you recall what's actually on the first floor?
The first floor has a living room, dining room, kitchen, and a den.
All right. And what would be the reason that that you couldn't have done an integral garage with this particular dwelling? Nancy, you still there?
Attached to the house?
I think she's, I thought you looked like you were frozen there. Yes, so, there's a suggestion here that the applicant, created his own hardship because he didn't plan in advance for a garage. What is your response to that?
Well, we had planned a garage underneath the house, and, just there was a lot of effort to put the garage into the house, and then the Loma happened, and then we lost that. It seemed more wise and prudent to get the house out of the floodplain rather than to get a garage under the house. And then again, the garage would have triggered the buffer zone with CRMC. So, and the lot is so small as it is that we didn't want to lose more property to a buffer zone.
All right, and so if you had attached the garage to the house, or taken out of the house, if you will, for the garage, you would not have been able to have the first floor living space the way that it is today. Is that correct?
Yeah, you would have lost a good 600 square feet of living space, which would have made the house really small. I mean, right now the living room is 19 feet by 19, the kitchen is 19 feet by 19 feet, so nothing is that big. The den on the first floor is 13 feet 1 by 13 foot 9. Everything was a squeeze. Everything in the house was a squeeze. I think there's an office upstairs for Jean Marie that's 10 feet by 10 feet, and that includes the walls, so actually it's 9 by 9. So there wasn't, we didn't have a lot of, it was just a squeeze. It was a tight house. And that's why the house has so many jogs trying to get light into it and trying to make it all work.
All right, let's turn our attention to the garage, the proposed garage. So this is a 1-car garage, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And you've designed it so that it also has some space on the first floor, or the garage level, if you will, for storage of equipment and sporting goods and things of that nature, correct?
Yes. Okay. And to be able to open up your doors as well.
Okay, very good. And why don't you explain to the board what the features are of the rest of the proposed structure?
There's a 10-foot by 10-foot bicycle shed, storage shed for beach things, etc. And then there's an art studio up above that we have a rear door going up into the art studio, so you wouldn't have to walk through the garage to get into the art studio. It's a 12-pitch roof, which matches the existing residence. And I added 3 dormers so that we'd be able to get a little bit of headroom. Had I not added the dormers, there would only be about 5 feet of full headroom in that area. So the art studio is 12 feet by 16 feet, and then the 2 dormers. And a little
Does
lavette.
the structure, pardon me, and there's a lavette, yes. Does the structure meet the height code?
Yes, it does. It's 20 feet.
Okay. So, and then Jess, if you could pull up photograph number 3, exhibit number 3. Excellent. And then after that, we're going to look at number 2 right after this one, if we could. Oh, there we go. Okay. So this is the location for the garage, correct, Nancy?
Yes.
Okay. And that, you can't really tell so much in this photograph, but that's a sloped site, correct?
Yes.
So that area that we're looking at, the grassy area, that's all going to be excavated out, is it not?
You're going to be cutting into that 3 feet.
Okay. And then what will be to the rear with any kind of a retaining wall, or describe to us what the construction will be back there?
The actual garage will be the retaining wall.
Okay.
So the height of the house from that direction would be 3 feet less. It would be 17 feet tall.
Okay, 17 feet tall. And the stairway to the second floor, where is that located in regards to the construction area?
The back rear, where the electrical box is there.
Okay, very good. Could we show photo 2, I think it is? Just doesn't show up as well on the screen. I don't know if the board can see the driveway in that photo. I can't when it's on my screen here, but I thought we had. Oh, there we go. Very good. Okay, so that sloped area. So now, if you know, and maybe this is an Amy question, but do you know whether or not the shrubbery, the trees that are there, the smaller ones to the left, are they located, do you know, on the applicant's property or the neighbor's property?
Applicant's property.
Okay,
The
thanks, Amy.
the ones to the left, yes.
Do we know? Well, I better go back to Mr. Leonard.
I don't
Mr.
think
Leonard,
that's-
are you still there?
I am.
Okay.
I don't think that's accurate.
The
I look at this picture, there's a tree that is, like it's got no leaves on it this time of year, but there's a tree there that I don't know whose property that's on. I believe that's on the neighbor's property on the other side of the pole.
I'm sorry,
then-
did I say applicant? It's the abutter's property.
Yeah.
Sorry.
All of that shrubbery, big green giants. I think there's a cedar in there, there's a pine in there, and then there's 3 probably 17-foot recently planted green giant arborvitaes. All of those were not put in by us. They're on our neighbor's property.
All right, very good. And Mr. Leonard, while I have you there, based upon your experience on the other side of your lot with this kind of plant material, do you have any estimation as to how quickly those those plants grow?
I'm not an expert in this, but I understand green giant arborvitaes grow 3 or 4 feet a year.
Has that been your experience on the other side of your property in your recollection?
Yeah, I mean, on the other side of the property is a significant portion of the property that when we purchased the property in 2004, there was nothing there. And now there's very, very significant arborvitaes that have frankly blocked a portion of the lot's view down the pond. And I guess that's all I have to say about that.
So is any reason to believe that these plants wouldn't have the same growth pattern as the other plants that have been installed?
No, this screening was put in presumably to block any view of our property.
Okay. And based upon the rapidity of the growth in the other areas of your property, do you expect this to completely block the view to your proposed garage in a relatively short period of time?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
You know, my understanding is these trees get 40 to 50 feet tall. And as you can see on the right-hand side of this photo, there are some trees that have been put in over the last number of years that are 40 feet tall at least. You can see, I mean, that's not a small pickup truck there, and they tower over the pickup truck.
Ms. Leslie, if I were to be, if none of those trees were there and I were standing on the abutting property looking at the rear of the proposed garage, what will I see? If there was nothing.
One door and one window in the gable end of the garage.
Okay, and what is the proposed exterior cladding supposed to be?
It's going to match the existing house.
All right.
Red cedar, yellow cedar, I mean.
Okay.
So, Mr. Chairman, can I have just a quick question? So can we safely assume by looking at this picture that that electrical box on the left is basically the property line going across towards this truck?
The
No.
telephone, I think the telephone pole is essentially where the property line stake is. And that's beyond, it's tough to tell in this picture, but that's beyond that electrical box. And then the property line runs essentially along that shrub line in front of the pickup truck.
Okay. All right.
Anything else, Mr. Mark?
No, that was it. I just don't want to have to come back, dig through pictures.
Very good.
Ms. Leslie, has the applicant ever requested that you design this structure to accommodate any living quarters?
No.
No kitchen, no shower, no bedroom, nothing like that. Is that correct?
Correct.
Mr. Chairman, at this time, I believe I've concluded my direct examination of the witnesses. I may have one or two more, but I believe I've covered it. And so hopefully we've given you sufficient information to be able to ask whatever questions you might have. And then at the appropriate time, I would like the opportunity to summarize.
Of course. So before, I just wanted to, before board members ask questions, well, okay, why don't we have board members ask questions first? So board members, do you have questions of either Mr. Leonard, Ms. Sonder, or Ms. Leslie in terms of anything pertaining to this project?
Yes, I have another question.
Yes, Mr. Mark.
So regarding the site plan and like the percentage of coverage, and it's, you're saying at 10%, where like according to DEM or CRMC, it's considered 20%. Does that only consider roof line? Is that disturbed area? You know, I'm not sure whose purview this falls under exactly. I'm guessing Ms. Sonder.
Yep,
Yes.
I can answer a couple of those questions. So right now, the site as existing without the garage is at 8.4% lot coverage per the South Kingstown zoning regulations. That would be structural, decks, roof, cabana, bathhouse. With the proposed garage, it would be at 10.7% lot coverage.
Okay.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah. I mean,
Okay.
And the 20%, Amy, is that under the zoning ordinance?
That's under the South Kingstown zoning ordinance. As far as coastal, that 50%, if you're referring to that, we try and stay under 50% of the structural roofed area. So when you look at a house, anything that's roofed, a porch, house, and then that coastal restriction that we have, we try not to increase that area more than 50%. And you referred to coastal earlier, so I thought
right. So in the
might want to
previous,
understand that.
for example, the previous structure was 1,000 square feet of roof line. Going forward, you could go 1,500 square feet of roof line.
Correct.
So if one were to look at a bird's eye view of the surrounding area in roof lines, some are, much greater and fewer smaller. So
Yes. So we were already, bound by that, what was existing on site at that time.
okay. Do you know how far back the roof line coverage limitation goes?
Yes, 1995.
Okay.
And it's cumulative, so they can't, if they come back with things, they keep track of it since 1995.
Okay. That was all I had.
Ms. Sonder, so for when they're considering sort of a developed property, right? And we're looking at the improvements of that property, and the impact to either the environment or otherwise. I mean, we're mainly looking at structures that have an impact to it. So when we're looking at this particular site plan, there's a lot of activity on this site plan, but it doesn't mean it's all developed in a sense. Like there's a pool, there's a patio, there's a terraced lawn, or 2 patios, but none of this is necessarily contributing to the site being developed in a sense of contributing to some negative aspect of structures being on there. Because CRMC is not counting the pool, the terraced area, the patio, any of that as impactful to.
Correct. We do have a limit of disturbance that we try and, which we maintained on that 75 feet from the coastal feature. And you can substantially, pretty much do what you'd like in that area with approvals. But yes,
So none of this is considered as something that would be a concern for CRMC, DEM, as a pool, a patio, none of those terraces.
They consider that substantially landscaping. They're more concerned about structural roofed area, and even decks get a lot of leeway with coastal resources, but open decks, but structural roofed area has more regulations with coastal resources.
And these patios are pervious, I'm assuming?
Yes, all pervious.
Okay.
And there is
Any other
no
board-
deck,
oh,
is that
sorry.
correct?
There are no decks. No, there's an open landing on the westerly side of the house there, but no open decks, no.
Board members, any other questions for the folks that have provided testimony?
Yeah, I just have Bill Rosen, I'm sorry. Just have a question about this LOMAR. What does that stand for?
Letter of map amendment with a revision, or a LOMA F, which is letter of map amendment with fill.
And what's the X zone?
X zone is the former C zone. It's substantially has less than 1% chance of flooding.
Okay, now on the description or the plans here, it has FEMA zone AE and it has a dashed line. Right underneath it, it says X zone LOMAR F. And that line, what does that line indicate?
So when we did the LOMA F, we filled that area around the house to be above elevation. Oh boy, where was I? Elevation, I think we're 13. So that line had to be verified and submitted to FEMA. I actually surveyed the limits of that fill. We submitted to FEMA and they actually alter the flood zone map to reflect the limits of this line. So that will be the new line for FEMA. If somebody, say this house was demolished and brought to the ground, that line would stay where it is and it would be utilized for the next potential site, hopefully never.
Okay, and the proposed garage and studio is not affected by that line, or is it?
Nope, that will be, actually, that area there was already in what's called an AE, or above the flood zone, sorry, X zone. So that area was already out prior to the starting of this project. We manipulated that line with fill.
Okay. And then it says right next to the proposed garage, it has another line, which I assume is different than the line. And it says coastal feature 200 feet. That's 200 feet from the coastal feature, I assume.
Yes, that's the 200-foot setback, the jurisdictional review for coastal.
And that line has nothing to do with the LOMAR line, right?
No.
They're different.
They're different, correct.
Okay. Now, somewhere I saw, one other question, somewhere I saw, I think it was the objector saying there was going to be a bathroom in the studio area.
I think there is, Nancy would have to answer that, but I think there is.
Yeah, there's a small lavette upstairs, a toilet and a sink.
So no shower.
No shower.
So is that considered a half bath?
Yes.
Okay. And Mr. Doherty, I guess, what's the need for that half bath?
I think you mean Mr.
Oh, my wife's going to use it for her artwork, and I guess if she's in the middle of something, she'd prefer not to have to go back to the house.
So she's going to need water for doing her artwork and stuff like that.
Yeah, and facilities, if you will.
No, I understand the facilities, but it would go further than just being a bathroom. It might be used for, say, watercolors or something like that.
Yes, yes.
Particularly during the winter, I assume. Okay, thank you. That's all the questions I have.
Any other board members' questions?
Could I follow up on one thing that Bill was just
Sure.
asking about the
Mr. Mark.
LOMA and the
Yep.
LOMA F? So that percentage that falls under the LOMA, it affects it deems a whole site, it takes a whole site off of the, in this case, whatever it was, a VE flood zone.
I'm not sure. So not the entire site. I think I submitted the loan. Did we submit
Yeah, so
the form?
on the map, you showed basically the LOMA line that went basically through the middle of the site plan we were looking at. And then there was which kind of brought it right up next to the house. So does the entire property come off of like the town's flood zone, like FEMA regulation, or is it just that percentage of land that was filled to bring it up to whether it's 13 or 13+1?
So on this particular site, a lot of times when we do ALOMAs, it's just specifically for the structure, the house. What we did here was actually with the land, we filled the land. So it's only taking that portion of land out. But that said, the town and everybody is more concerned about the structures. So I don't think, so no, the entire site did not get taken off, just that portion that I filled. But in doing so, that removed this dwelling structure from the flood zone. So that is the concern with the town and the flood rating, is getting the structure off. They're not so concerned about the land flooding anywhere, as long as it doesn't impact structures that would impose on insurance.
Okay, all right.
Is that clear? I'm sorry.
No, perfectly.
Took us all a long time to wrap our own heads around this. So I'm sure if we can get through this tonight, I'm very pleased.
Fair enough. That's my last question.
That's it?
Great.
Okay. Mr. Daniels or Mr. Charkowick, you guys have any questions at this point?
I do not, Mr. Chairman.
I have just a more of a clarification point, Mr. Chairman.
Sure, Mr. Charkowick.
So trying to follow the complexity of this application, it sounds like that if the pool and the cabana and the bathhouse were not on the property, there would be no others. That wouldn't provide a space to put a garage with a studio of this size. So those structures have no impact on the applicant's ability to construct this.
Are you asking me?
Yes.
I think that would be for Ms. Sonder.
Yeah. So we want the structure to be on that Loma side, the landward side of the Loma. So yes, you would not want to put it where the pool, terrace, or any of those other areas are, because those would be seaward of that new FEMA line.
And then you're constricted by the coastal setback as well, right?
And coastal setback, correct? Yes.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. That's all I have.
You're welcome.
Okay. Any other questions, board members?
Nope.
Okay. Ms. Hogan, did you want to have anyone else present at this point, or?
I have no further witnesses, Mr. Chairman. I just want to wrap up at the end.
Okay. So why don't I do this? Why don't I read in the letters that we have thus far? This one is from Michael and Christine Anderson of 449 North Street in Chester, Vermont. Their local address is 141 Old Succotash Road in South Kingstown, Rhode Island, 02879. This is dated January 19th, 2021. To whom it may concern, we are writing to support Matthew and Jean Marie Leonard's zoning application for their property at 68 Potter Road. The proposed garage will be a perfect addition to their already beautiful home. This is a necessary structure for their vehicles and other yard tools, equipment, garbage bins, etc., that have our full support. We also know that their design will complement the surrounding landscape and will only add to the value of their home and other areas and others around it. In addition, as the owners of Potter's Road, we are certain that the Potter Road, we are certain that the Leonards and their contractors will be respectful of the right of way and will do the work in a manner that will not hinder traffic or do any other damage to anyone else's property along Potter Road. We fully support the zoning board and the setback relief that the Leonards are seeking to complete the building of this structure. Regards, Christine and Michael Anderson. And as Ms. Hogan mentioned, that these are the owners of the right of way. We also have a support letter from Matt and Tammy Mazza of 55 Potter Road in Wakefield, Rhode Island. This is on January 20th, 2021, addressed to the zoning board, town of South Kingstown, to whom it may concern. We are writing this letter in support of the variance request of Matt and Jean Marie Leonard at 68 Potter Road. The variance they are requesting will actually fit the proposed structure on their property better and be aesthetically more pleasing to the surrounding residents than if they tried to meet the setback criteria. The corner where they propose to put the building is surrounded by very large arborvitaes on the adjacent property, Donnell 46 Potter Road. We'll actually screen any site of this structure from the resident on that side of the Potter Road and upper north side of Potter Road. We, the Andersons and the Hansons, are the only property owners who will see this structure from our properties. Simply put, all of those residents are in support of this and no one else will be able to see it. The Leonards have always been cognizant of making their property a beneficial addition to the neighborhood, and based upon what they have done so far, can see no reason they should not be granted this variance and permit. In the recent variance request by Hanson, there were some questions, but the variance was ultimately supported and granted. I hope the situation is the same here, and the letters of support for the variance and letters of objection to this one were not written because of financial gain or spitefulness by some residents. Thank you sincerely, Frank and Tammy Mazza. And then we have the letter received on September 13th, 2020 from Becky Donnell and to Jessica Spence of South Kingstown. And this is relative to the dimensional variance of John Hanson, 73 Potter Road meeting. It's the wrong, am I reading the wrong one?
No, Mr. Chairman.
No.
We
okay.
submitted that.
Oh, okay, sorry. 73 Potter Road meeting, September 16th, 2020. In response to the notice of public hearing under the zoning ordinance we received regarding Assessors Map 87-2, Lot 121 and Zoned R80, we are in favor of the town granting the dimensional variance for the following reasons. The new dwelling will be an additional 4 feet further away from the only abutting neighbor, which is 55 Potter Road, than the existing dwelling location. All lots on Potter Road are non-conforming, and 3 dwellings, number 46, number 55, and number 68, have been replaced in the last 12 years, and variances were obtained when needed. The dwelling will conform to FEMA, DEM, CRMC regulations, which the existing dwelling does not. We met with John Hanson and reviewed the rendering of the new dwelling and found it to be perfect addition to our neighborhood in relation to the size, style, and lot placement. Also provide expanding water views for all of the neighbors as compared to the existing dwelling lot location. In conclusion, we feel the dimensional variance should be issued by the town as we see only positive outcomes for the town, DEM, CRMC, and the neighborhood. Thank you, Charles and Rebecca Donnell, 46 Potter Road. So those were the 2 letters or the 3 letters in support.
Can I make a clarification?
Yes, Mr. Leonard.
Just so there's no confusion. There was a letter of support that came in from John Hanson. You may remember John, he was in front of you in October. And
right.
And I didn't hear that read into the record, sir.
I think that's why I was a little confused with what I was reading. So
and there was okay.
No, go ahead. Jessica, do you have that letter from Mr. Hanson?
Give me 1 second.
Okay, not the team Leonard. No. Oops.
I'm going to bring it up on the screen right now.
Okay. So this last letter from John Hanson from 47 Walbridge Road, West Hartford, Connecticut, is dated January 15th, 2021. They're writing in support of the zoning application submitted by Matthew and Jean Marie Leonard for the property of 68 Potter Road. The proposed structure is in a somewhat visually secluded location, and in my opinion, does not generally interfere with the view of the pond or the surrounding area due to the surrounding trees. From an aesthetic point of view, the proposed building is beautifully designed and complements an already appealing house. And the area on which the proposed structure is to be built is currently used for parking, so a building doesn't detract from the appearance in any case. Most important, the land parcels near the water are generally odd shaped. Having recently had a zoning application approved by the neighborhood, I can attest that the restriction imposed by CRMC, RIDEM, and the town of South Kingston, while beneficial to the big picture, make it much more difficult to meet the R80 zoning regulations. Such regulations seem difficult to apply fairly on these small lots, and a degree of relief is often required to create a living space that is useful to the owner while remaining unobtrusive to neighbors. In my opinion, this petition is not seeking undue relief and will not adversely affect the neighborhood. I support the board granting approval of the setback relief sought by Matthew and Jean Marie Leonard. So thank you, Mr. Leonard, for pointing that out.
You're welcome.
So with that, if the applicant doesn't have anything else to present at this time, Jessica, can we ask if there's anyone out there that wishes to speak in favor or against this?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I have attorney Stephen Surdu raising his hand.
Okay. Attorney Surdu.
He just needs to unmute. There we go.
Thank you, Ms. Spence and Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir. What can we do for you?
I wanted the opportunity to speak. I provided a detailed objection, and I think it's notable that the applicant took pains to address that because I think that it has some very salient points. Obviously, I authored it. What you heard tonight was a lot of information, some of which goes through the history of the site. And what I essentially heard is that the applicant is struggling to find space in his 4,000 square foot house in order to conduct the artisanal activity. And while it's none of our business to judge what other people do in their household, I'm struggling with the applicant's suggestion that in a 4,000 square foot household, they need some additional space. And to that effect, what you also heard tonight was that this applicant has made value judgments and choices during the course of their development of this project, going back to 2007 and before. The applicant did choose, or did, whether they chose to or not, the applicant did go through a permitting process between 2004 and 2007, whereby they expanded, whether it was as a result of regulations, whereby when they demolished and built a new structure, they were required to bring that on-site septic system up to modern code, that be it by regulation or by choice, that increase in size and the choice to use an underground system versus an above ground system and to locate it in its current location were choices the applicant made. And that speaks to a hardship, that speaks to the creation of that hardship. And also my suggestions regarding the applicant having over 4,000 square feet to work with, where it seems to be that there are two people living in a 3-bedroom, 4,000 square foot house, that it is the least amount of relief necessary here, the construction of an additional structure and an additional story on that structure. So those are some of my main points here. What I also think that we discovered in listening to the applicant tonight is that the applicant has used up all of the allowed space inside of the coastal feature. And that's why the applicant is here making a request to be outside of the coastal feature, and is unable to move, to go any closer to their own structure. I think that those regulations are in place for a reason. And in combination with the setbacks are reasonable constraints on site. So while the applicant has made some improvements to the site, the applicant chose to conduct a LOMA, which you heard the applicant's own experts here tonight say, in choosing to undertake that LOMA, they gave up the garage, or they chose not to construct a garage. And you also heard the applicant's own architect tonight say that they chose to put in 600 square feet of living space instead of a garage. Those are choices that you make in a development of a lot.
Okay, it sounds like that they were suggesting not to put the garage under the house, which if they put it under the house, then it would have changed the flood elevation.
It would have not changed the flood elevation. And there's the subtlety, Mr. Chairman. It just would have not given them the benefits of a LOMA. Additionally, my understanding from what the architect said, and I'm sure I'll clarify, is that they could have placed the garage on the ground floor above ground, but they would have lost 600 square feet of their 4,000 plus square feet of living space. The applicant's own architect also suggested this is a 3-story house. So I'm not sure exactly how the 3rd story and the square footage of that story, but it is a sizable home, and in that the applicant itself themselves built and made choices about the nature of how they constructed this lot. You also heard that they chose to use an underground system instead of an above ground system. And there are setbacks around that septic system and the choices that they made in doing that.
So you're suggesting that the SDS could have gone somewhere else? The wastewater
Would have been,
treatment?
or a different system, Mr. Chairman. We've all seen the forest in a box systems that take up far less space.
In a different location than where they are now?
Yeah, because my understanding of reading this map is that the building envelope, the section of the building envelope whereby they could have expanded the house out, is covered by, the OWTS is underneath. But what we've also heard tonight here, Mr. Chairman, is the applicant could only expand the roof area, the covered area, the footprints inside of that coastal feature by a certain percentage. And that's why you see the applicant here now not building in their building envelope, but coming into the encroaching areas. Because it seems to be what based on my understanding of the evidence tonight, they cannot construct any structure over 200 square feet inside of the 200-foot feature because they've used up their space. The same way under your special use permits.
We can ask him that question, but I don't think I don't think it has any relevance to our special use permits.
Well, no, your special use permits whereby you can expand a pre-existing non-conforming use by only 25% or by a specific percentage, it's cumulative. Once they've used up that amount, there's no more there.
But that's not in front of us right now.
But I'm using that as a metaphor to analogize how CRMC's regulations work. Further,
is that the way they work, Amy? Are you Ms. Goins? Or I'm sorry, Ms. Goins.
This is Amy Goins. I am not aware of how I cannot purport to be an expert on the CRMC regs.
Okay, so Ms. Sonder, in regards to that, you did mention that you were trying to stay originally to stay within the original footprint. Is that correct? Is that what you were saying, that 1.5 times or?
Well, yes, I always encourage my clients, and dealing with Coastal Resource, they always encourage us to only increase the roof area by 50%. Is that what the question was?
So are you restricted by that? Could you put the garage attached to the house at this point? Does your roof coverage have anything to do with the
No,
placement of the garage?
you can increase the roof area, but it impacts the site and negatively, and there's the possibility of denial with Coastal, and Coastal always encourages to go to the town and request relief wherever necessary prior to going with them with any variance requests. So this would be something we would have to do anyway. Yeah.
Okay. So I'm sorry, Mr. Doss, continue.
No, thank you for clarifying, Mr. Chairman. And at any time, please feel free to do so. And so while we did work diligently with the applicant tonight, and I was frustrated that we weren't able to work out a resolution, but I just have to say that I think the applicant created a situation here in locating the septic system where the applicant located it. And it's this applicant, it's not a prior landowner, it's the same landowner and the same applicant, that they're pushed out and pushed this close. They're pushed 14 feet into a 20-foot setback, which is already a reduced setback in an R80 zone because this is a pre-existing undersized or non-conforming lot. So the applicant is I think double dipping here. They're saying you're using the regulations for an undersized lot, and then they're asking for additional relief and saying their hardship here is that it's an undersized lot.
So you're suggesting that there was somewhere else that they could have built this on that property and not asking for relief from the town?
And I'm cumulatively, if you look at their decision-making process since they undertook removing the prior structure and putting on a new 4,000 square foot plus with the potential for 4 bedrooms. It's listed as a 4-bedroom on here. There's been some testimony that it's only 3. So it's a 4-bedroom dwelling. And then to that effect, if there are only 2 people living in the dwelling, the least amount of relief necessary would be to locate the artist space in one of these bedrooms.
So we're supposed to restrict, you're suggesting that we restrict people's size based on the size of their family?
No, Mr. Chairman.
Size?
No, absolutely not. But what I'm suggesting is that if the applicant, as they've testified, only 2 folks are living there, and there are 4 bedrooms in the home, that there is additional space in the home for these artisan activities to take place. The inconvenience would be redecorating the room, or maybe potentially bringing in some plumbing to put in a sink.
So you're suggesting by the restrictions of the site, based on the fact that it is within a flood zone, then they should have already known that they couldn't put a garage?
Yeah, or factored a garage in as they developed and built out the property.
So are your clients opposed to a garage period on this property, or just in this location?
Just in this location, Mr. Chairman, and just in this close inside of a setback.
Are your clients, are the Donalds?
Yes.
Okay. And the Donalds were in front of this board recently, weren't they?
No, Mr. Chairman.
Oh, they wasn't them that, okay. But there were other neighbors in front of this board that they.
That's my understanding.
There are other properties that are equal in size surrounding this property. This house isn't an anomaly. There's
No, and nor did my clients have any objection to the house. The house is built within the building envelope, and the house is properly situated and fitting to the lot.
Okay, so if this were within the setbacks, then they would have no problem with this garage at all.
No, correct, and quite frankly, Mr. Chairman, a 14 feet of relief in a 20-foot setback is a significant amount of relief here. It's not as if and that's another thing that I think is relevant here, Mr. Chairman. And the applicant is asking for a property 24 feet in width for a single car garage. Most of your parking ordinances have parking spaces being approximately 10 feet wide. Even then, with a 4-foot staircase, if you put a couple of feet, I mean, I struggle with why they need a 24-foot wide single car garage.
Is it 24 feet?
No, it's 21.
Sorry, 21 feet. Well, depending on how you look at it, relative to the frontage of the property, it's 24 feet.
That's the depth of it. That's not the width of the opening.
Okay, so the depth, why they need a depth of a property that's 24 feet when most of our parking spaces do not require to be more than 19 or 20. Further, if there's only gonna, the garage door is pretty and it's being centered on that other wall. And I guess to some extent it maximizes storage on both sides or allows storage on one side and a staircase on the other. But most single car garages are not 24 feet in width or depth, and 21 feet in width and 24 feet in depth.
What are they typically?
I would defer to Ms. Sonder, but your parking area for a single car is 10 feet. So I would certainly think that you would not have a single car garage more than 15 or 16 feet in width.
What's the typical size for a 1-car garage?
Are you asking me?
Or Nancy, Leslie?
Nancy may be able to answer better, but yeah.
If you were only to store a car in there, but I don't think that's what they had asked me to do. They were asking for a single car and kayak, surfboard storage, etc., garbage cans. There's a lot of conversation about where the trash is going to go. So I would say a single car garage would probably be 16 by 24. And so we're 5
24 is typical?
24 is a typical depth, and we're actually losing 4 feet of that with the stairs. So the tip of our car will be hitting that stairway in depth because of the stair in the back.
Okay. So I'm sorry, Mr.
I just suggest that it's not the least amount of relief necessary in order to have an artisanal space and to have a single car garage. The applicant
Is there a smaller size that you suggest?
We were suggesting that the applicant be 10 feet away from the property line. That was one of the suggestions that we discussed, which is essentially giving up half of the setback.
So that extra 5 feet,
that's just 6 feet.
Because, okay, so now it's 6 feet. So you're saying an extra 4 feet is going to be different?
I'm saying, Mr. Chairman, that the applicant stepping back from the property would give my clients a degree of comfort. We were also asking that in that space, an additional line of trees be located. We're also concerned, my clients are concerned about proximity to their property. They're also concerned if there needs to be access at any point to the back area. We've discussed additional buffering. The applicant is essentially saying, hey, my neighbor planted some trees, so I want to take advantage of those trees, and not proposing any buffering themselves.
Do you want additional buffering besides the 20-foot high plantings that are there now?
Well, they are, but they're tall, Mr. Chairman, but I'm sure your board knows when we're really trying to screen something, the typical use is a double row of evergreen trees in our offset in an effort to block your eye's ability to see through those trees and to gradually block them out.
So, and I'll ask Mr. Gorman. Mr. Gorman, can we regulate trees to make sure that they're continually planted after a ruling is made?
I think that'd be a tough one for a condition of approval. Is that what you're speaking about?
Yeah, I mean, like, is screening something you can enforce?
You could put a condition potentially, but it'd be enforcement of conditions of approval. We have seen some strange ones over the years, but I haven't seen anything relative to screening.
This is, Rob, if I can weigh in, this is Amy
Please.
Goins. I think screening is an easy one to enforce, as long as you identify the condition with numbers, right? About how high, how wide, how long. It's either there and it measures up or it doesn't. So yeah, there's always a general issue with enforcement, but that to me, that strikes me as one that's relatively simple to enforce versus, noise shall not be unreasonable.
Right. I mean, I guess it's just a matter of like, it's a 20-foot tall plant now, and we can't say it always has to be a 20-foot tall plant. Because things grow and things die.
Well, you certainly can enforce reasonable conditions, and the question is, what do you think is reasonable? Would it be reasonable for someone to maintain a screen like that in perpetuity? That's up to you, but you certainly could impose a condition like that for screening that must be maintained.
Thank you. So Mr. Sardut, so you're saying that if it were 4 feet farther away and there were more plantings, then you wouldn't have a problem with it?
Yes, the only other thing, that was one of our proposals to the applicant. One of the other things is we would prefer that the doorway, the exit, not be located on that back side in the so-called setback area or the traditional setback area. I think there's enough access on the side, and if their primary way in and out of the structure is going to be from the house or from the parking area or to and from, going out that door, we were trying to move that out of, looking to see that door move around to the other side of the structure.
And so the Donald's principal residence, how far is it from the property line on that side?
I unfortunately don't have that specific number for you, but it is, they have complied with the setback. That certainly I can tell you.
So is it 10 feet, 15
The
feet,
setback
100
is-
feet?
The setback is 20 feet. It's outside of that. I really, and I'm not trying to be cute, Mr. Chairman, I didn't even so much as like walk it out with and I'm lucky, I have size 12 feet, so it's easy for me to walk out feet. I just didn't walk it out, and I wish I had to give you that information.
I mean, the garage looks like it's about 50 feet away from the property line as it is. So is there a garage part of their house, or is it separate from their house?
It is attached to their house, as almost all of the garages that were actually shown in the applicant's photos. They're all attached or integrated into the primary home.
Okay. Were there questions specifically you wanted me to ask besides this? I know you mentioned the choice of ISDS system.
And what I'm trying to illustrate with that, Mr. Chairman, is that the statutory criteria here, which is that you can't created your own hardship. Should we concede that there's a hardship because it's an undersized lot of record? So it's kind of my argument is they created their own hardship by choosing to use a LOMA, which from what I could tell was not part of the application, which I learned about tonight, but was the only way to fill in this type of area. And I commend them on doing that. But in utilizing that LOMA and the benefits of that, where they no longer have to pay flood insurance, and they ultimately are a benefit to the town in that regard as well as themselves, they chose to not to forego their previously designed garage. And then they chose to forego putting that garage into the first floor dwelling or the first level, and forego 600 feet of dwelling space, which from what it seemed to sound like, they have a den and a living room on the first floor. It just seems like the least amount of relief necessary would, or I'm sorry, that they created their own hardship here. And then even further, when we go to the least amount of relief necessary, if they just want to park a car, why are we doing 2 stories and all these other things? And my clients, we really did, as Ms. Hogan said at the beginning, we've been diligently trying to work this out. And I think that my client's request that they go to 10 feet and some screening is not an unreasonable request, considering.
Go ahead. No, I was going to say,
No,
okay,
no,
let's see
Mr.
what we can do.
I'll defer from there and step back for a moment.
Okay, great. So Ms. Hogan, I mean, do you want me to just sort of throw it out there and see what we can get for responses as to, we'll start with the hard part, which is just going right to it and saying, well, why not 10 feet? And why not more plants?
So, Mr. Chairman, reducing taking the side to 10 feet would reduce the depth by 4 feet. And Ms. Leslie has already testified that that is basically the standard depth that you would expect to have. I believe it would create some difficulties there. I hesitate to get into, what the various offers were going back and forth. I know the board doesn't need to get involved in that, but certainly, Mr. Surdett has presented the things that were favorable to his client, and I don't really want to get into that. What I would like to do, though, is just to ask a few clarifying questions of Mr. Leonard in regards to some of the commentary, if that would be permissible.
Yeah, I guess, well, yes, we could do that, but I guess I'm curious now, let's say the whole garage was picked up on the plan and moved to the west 10 feet. What does that do to the site? And what does that do to, why not 10 feet to the west?
That's an Amy question. Go ahead, Amy. I think that puts us right into coastal.
It's pretty obvious that it does go right into that coastal setback, which triggers, a potential substantial review by coastal that can't be regulated by staff. I also have the setbacks around the leaching field, which I would have with any above ground leaching field. I would still have setbacks that I would have to maintain. And to that point, again, I would reiterate, this is definitely a septic system that no matter what we had proposed here or were considering, I would have encouraged anybody to do and put in place in this driveway. So no, I don't see moving that 10 feet to the west.
And I don't want to go backwards in a sense of saying, well, if the house was here and if that was there. But even based on how the plan is now, was there much ability in moving the house around? I mean, you can reduce the footprint of the house, but it doesn't look like the house could have gone any closer to the water. You could have moved around in that center part a little bit. You can move it back a little bit. You could have moved it forward, but then the septic would have taken its place wherever you moved it in that other spot, right?
It was tweaking here and there, and I actually altered the septic angle to conform with the house, which was allowed by DEM, with there are some, little bit of leniency with the septic system per the original design. So yeah, there's a little bit of angular tweaking, but nothing that's more than a foot or two here and there that can help in any way.
And in terms of the bringing in all that fill,
Cut off the corner.
Well, hang on. But in terms of bringing in all that fill and changing the elevation of the property in order to get out of the flood zone, do people make that decision just to save money on insurance?
No, that's not the only reason. I mean, that's obviously a bonus point at the end, but when you have a velocity zone and you're building in this area, I would encourage it. If anybody has the ability to do it, I would always encourage them to do it. It's a they paid a substantial amount to fill this land. I'm not sure what insurance costs would be, but to recoup that will take quite some time, believe me.
And, okay. So then again, Ms. Hogan, then you wanted to ask Mr. Leonard a few things as well?
Yes, if I could.
Please.
We've heard much about the fact that Mr. Leonard and Mrs. Leonard are living here on their own. So I just need to voir dire a little further on that. Mr. Leonard, you testified earlier, you have 4 boys, is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And do you expect them to have families of their own someday?
I hope that they do.
Okay. And would you expect that they might visit you from time to time?
I hope that they do.
And you're not going to be putting them up in your bedroom now, are you?
Probably not, no.
We've heard Ms. Leslie testify that there is a small den or den on the first floor. Is it not your intention to retire in this home?
We will retire in the home, yes.
Okay. And so as you age, is there a need for a bedroom on the first floor?
I don't really think so at this point, no.
I mean, as you get older.
I don't know, I mean.
He doesn't want to admit he's going to get old.
I guess that's possible.
And there's been much ado about the 4,000 square feet. The footprint of your home is, well, that's probably an Amy question. I won't dwell on that with you then. There was a claim that you've that you're basically double dipping, as I understand it, and that and I don't entirely understand it, but I think I asked you earlier, but I'll just confirm. Did you seek any other variances from the town in the construction of the house?
I did not, and you know, I do think that's important, and I do want to make one other point. Like, there was some discussion about the fact that it's going to be built into the hill and it's going to be 17 feet off the back of the property, not 20. And the abutters are concerned about it being screened, despite the fact that there's a huge row of arborvitaes there. I guess what I struggle with is, you know, these same folks supported with a letter to the town, they supported the Hansons who are building a 35-foot tall house, essentially right in generally the same area. And now they're objecting to a 17-foot tall garage. It just doesn't seem to hang together from my perspective.
Okay. Is that it, Ms. Hogan?
For the moment, yes, sir.
Okay. Board members, I've been quite chatty, and I'd like to hear from the rest of you, but.
Mr. Chairman, this is Tom Daniels. I have a couple of questions for Mr. Serta based on his argument.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Serta, I visited the property twice and noticed, as has been testified to and shown here tonight, the presence of the large arborvitae. Is there a reason to expect that your client is going to destroy these trees or take them down?
I don't, Ms. Spencer, I just wanted to make sure that I was good. Mr. Chairman, no, I can't say that there's a reason to expect that my client would take them down, but to have my clients have spent considerable expense in building and maintaining those structures and those trees, and we do believe that that this structure will be visible through those trees. And it's so what we're asking the applicant to do as part of this and as part of a compromise and something that we would ask the board, even if you were to grant this, to put in as a condition, is to put an additional row of arborvitae or evergreen trees behind this. It is the typical methodology to screen something to have 2 rows of trees that are separated based upon their ultimate circumference and growing distance. And in such a way, it is a much more effective tool to block the visual, a structure of any kind from a fence to a building. So
Okay.
that's one of the requests my clients have made. Should you?
Could I respond to that?
I understand what you're arguing. My next question is, having again looked at the property a couple of times, it looks like your client's nearest structure to the arborvitaes and to this proposed structure is a garage. Is that correct?
It is, Mr. Chairman, but if you look at some of the pictures the applicant has
Mr. Vice
submitted,
Chairman, but that's all right.
I'm sorry, Mr. Vice Chairman, that the direction that a lot of the deck portion of the property faces and an area where your eye is just drawn when you're in the main living space of the Donnells is towards those trees and is in that lawn space. Their property, it's a unique situation in that they have what I call a flag lot that runs down to the water behind behind the applicant's property. It's like a pocket taken out of the lot, the original farmland when it was cut up down there. So, and there are visual impacts, and we are working and trying to work with the applicant to meet their needs and also maintain the existing viewscapes and where your eyes are drawn as they look to improve their property.
Okay, so there is no structure to the none of your client's structures are to the south. Is that correct, of this this piece of property?
Their shed and their dock are actually located, and by south, I'm assuming you mean closer to the water and behind the property, Mr. Vice Chair? They do use that property to recreate and as well as to access their dock. If you look on the site map, you'll see a small existing shed located well down at the water line.
So how would your client's views of this proposed structure of the applicant be hindered by either the shed or by the retaining wall on the southeast side or any of the southern area?
So the retaining walls, Mr. Vice Chair, are the reason that all of the arborvitaes are there. These retaining walls, at some areas, according to my client, and when you walk in it, and if you poke your head through the arborvitaes that my client has planted and maintained at considerable expense, they're bare cement walls. So had he not planted these arborvitaes and taken great care to do so and expense, you'd be looking at cement retaining walls.
Well, that's not what we're here to talk about.
Could we
just talk about representing your client based on the fact that his view of this garage, that's one of your positions, if I understand it correctly, would be impaired when in fact the adjoining structure from your client to this piece of property and to this proposed structure is a garage, which has a second floor over it, which may be a studio. I don't know what it is. So again, I'm struggling to understand what the objection is. How does a structure that's set behind 30 feet arborvitaes provide or offer some distraction for your client?
Well, I think we've addressed that, Mr. Vice Chair. It also, as I've said, when you don't see the entirety of their structure on the site map, but when you look at the letter that the applicant's exhibits, and you scroll down towards the bottom here, excuse me, you can see both the shed of my clients in Exhibit 17. And then as you look at Exhibit 18, you'll see how their deck wraps around that portion of the house. So if you were to be sitting with your back against the wall, where one of the two ways to get out to their deck, and also which is their, I believe, an area just adjacent to their kitchen, which would be like an eating area, dining room area, those side windows there all orient towards where this garage will, this proposed structure will be, garage and studio.
That's all I have.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. Any other board members have questions for anyone?
Mr. Chair, I would like to
Yes.
give my client an opportunity. I believe he'd like to just briefly make a short statement. If he is going to choose not to, then I'll defer to him and allow him to put that on the record. But it's my understanding he wants to make a short statement.
Sure, as long as he's willing to answer questions by board members, absolutely.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
just so you're also aware, Tammy Mazza has had her hand raised for some time.
Oh,
Okay.
I apologize.
It's okay. Now we'll give you your opportunity to finish up, or not finish up, but to present what you like. So Mr. Sudad, if he's willing to, if Mr. Donnell is willing to speak.
Ms. Donnell, if you'd like to speak, please raise your hand.
He just raised his hand. And you'll need to unmute. There you go.
So Mr. Donnell, could you please spell your name for the record?
Yes, my name's Chuck Donnell, last name spelled Donnell.
Okay. Mr. Donnell, do you swear to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Okay, great. So go ahead, Mr. Donnell.
Thank you. Yeah, I just wanted to make a brief comment and basically reiterate some of the things that Steve has covered, but for the most part, focus on how it does impact us. And we moved to 46 Potter Road 13 years ago. And similar to the Leonards, we demolished the existing house and built our new house. One of the attractive characteristics of the neighborhood that drew us here was the spacious separation of the houses and the outbuildings. In addition, we were pleased to see that the lots were all zoned R80 with a minimum side setback of 20 feet.
Right, crush them.
We consider the variance request of 14 feet of relief to be intrusive and also a great extensive and excessive, I'm sorry. We feel our privacy, the enjoyment of our property will be greatly impacted by granting this variance. We've buffered this area, as you have all commented, but the specific location that was buffered more recently was done 4 years ago at the beginning of their construction project to block out a porta-john that's placed where this garage is going to be for a 4-year period while the construction was undergoing. Now to have a proposed 2-story structure with a window and a door facing this property within 6 feet of this same area, we consider to be intrusive. We use this area. We spend many hours using this area to view sunsets from our dock and a bench that looks out over this westward section of our property. And we also maintain and enjoy our perennial gardens in this area. To add the studio with the walkway and the main doorway facing us would certainly add noise, foot traffic, and a lot of other things that do not currently exist with our quiet and tranquil property. In closing, I guess I would just like to request the board apply a reasonableness review and determination for the applicant to scale down the size of the dwelling and locate it 10 feet from our property. And we're certainly willing to do that. Thank you for listening.
Okay, board members, do you have questions for Mr. Donnell? Nope. Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank
Mr.
you.
Cagnetta? Mr. Cagnetta?
Yes.
Before you release Mr. Donnell, I'd like to have you ask him some clarifying questions, please.
Sure.
And it may be that his attorney just innocently misspoke, but would you clarify for us through Mr. Donnell that the retaining wall along the side of the property line between the two parties was not built first, and that the arborvitaes were planted first?
Well, I appreciate that. I mean, it's not really relative to the application. I mean, I know it's.
Is not relevant to the application for the garage, but they've maintained the position that they are being harmed by the activity on the site. And I would draw the board's attention, if you don't want to have him answer the question, I would draw the board's attention to applicants 12, 13, 14, and 15, which is a progression of the aerial photographs of the area. And then I would, if the chair declines, I would bring my client back to clarify that issue.
Okay. Well, why don't we have Mr. Donnell, just for the sake of expediency, see if he can answer it first. And if not, we can go the other route.
Yeah. First of all, I agree it's not relevant to the issue that we're discussing here, but the answer to the question is we moved the trees to that property line location to discourage the renters that were constantly going onto our property before the Leonards moved into their newly constructed house a year ago. They rented the property for quite a number of years to weekly renters, and they would show up on our dock, fish from our dock, take their dogs onto our property, et cetera, et cetera.
Okay. Well, yeah, that's not the route I wanted to go down. But okay, so what else? That doesn't necessarily help the us in this situation.
Mr. Cagnetta, could we take a brief recess for about 2 minutes? As the board is aware, I have a pending matter in another jurisdiction, and the attorney is trying to reach me to figure out where we are. So could we just take a brief recess while I address that?
Yeah, that's not a problem.
Thank you.
Yeah, I have no objection to that.
Okay, thank you. So give us, do I have to make a motion for a recess, or we just recess for a few
You
minutes?
don't, you can just announce maybe whatever you think is 5 minutes, maybe. She asked for 2, but I think 5 is good.
Yeah, so it's 9:54 now, so just before 10, 9:59. Let's jump back on.
Hey, Steve.
recess. I gotta get back. I'd like a piece wrapped into a foil. Save time. William, what do you have, an ICBM on your wall over there?
Yeah, pretty close. A rowing shell. I was gonna say, who's eating cereal?
Me. It's actually Chex Mix.
There you go. It's a dinner I'm used to on these nights.
It's not cocktail time quite yet.
We're getting better at this. We're able to finish just in time. Boy. Does Ms. Hogan need to be on the call at this point any longer if the questions are done with her? Or?
Well, we don't know.
Good question. That's probably up to the applicant to decide if they want their counsel. But, I mean, it's worst case scenario, we could continue it, but.
Oy.
Boy.
Boy, yeah, marrying into the Jewish tradition has introduced me to a whole bunch of Yiddish. That has,
I was going to drop an oy vey, but I didn't want to overstep. Having being a Hanukkah and Rosh Hashanah celebrator myself. So
Yeah.
that's right. I do like it when people say it. My head will turn like, I heard that Yiddish.
Well, I grew up with it. My grandmother.
Oh, really? Did she speak like fluent?
Yep.
Wow.
wow.
Not that
Oh,
I
do
can.
you
Any-
can't. You
Not
don't-
anymore.
None of it.
No.
All the bad words.
No, that was too long ago.
Mr. Chairman, I've returned, but my video will not commence.
Okay.
again.
How
So
convenient.
you may just hear a voice.
Well, we can hear you.
Yeah.
Amy, or Ms. Goins, is it required that we see her?
It is not.
No.
It's preferable, but it's not required.
Okay.
My
I'm just
apologies.
making sure.
Obviously
You
that
let
was
someone
fine before.
participate however they can.
Yeah, and you can, Ms. Hogan, you can hold off from the other meeting for a bit.
Ooh, there I am.
There, now we
Yeah.
can see you.
There I am. Yeah, I've dealt with the situation.
Okay, that's great.
Couple of,
Well, hang on.
follow-up.
Do we have everybody back? No, we're missing,
okay.
we're missing Nancy, but we have do we have all the board members? Yes, we have all the board members here. So if everybody's here, let's continue. So Maggie,
Okay, great,
for it.
thank you. So I'm going to pivot then to Mr. Leonard, and Mr. Donnell just indicated he didn't feel it was relevant, but his attorney raised it. So I do think it needs to be clarified for the record. Mr. Leonard, turn on your microphone, please. You heard the testimony from Mr. Donnell, and pardon me, not from Mr. Donnell, from Mr. Surratt, indicating that the arborvitaes were planted in order to block that stone wall. What do you have to say about that?
That's just not accurate.
I couldn't hear you. Could you be louder,
That's-
please?
Yeah, that's not accurate. As we stated, they were planted many, many years ago, and the retaining wall just went in within the last few years.
Okay. Ms. Sonder, are you familiar with when the retaining wall went in?
Yes, it was approximately 2018 or when we started doing the Loma.
Thank you. Mr. Leonard, back to the driveway for just a moment, please. We've just had the opportunity to converse briefly. What is it that you wanted the board to know about the maneuverability of the driveway and the garage?
The abutter that's objecting suggested we could just move the garage back down into the property, and it just doesn't work. I mean, just today there was a FedEx truck that came down the road, and he pulled into the driveway, which was fine, but if the garage was pulled back further away, he would not have made it. And I guess FedEx is one thing, but an ambulance or a fire truck is something totally different.
Okay. Is that it, Ms. Hogan?
Until I'm ready to summarize, or if you have any other questions, we're happy to answer them.
Nope. I was gonna have the Mazzas speak. Is that right?
Oh, I think there are people there.
And I'm not sure who of the Mazzas.
There we go.
Hi.
There.
Am I on there?
Yes.
Hi,
Who's
how
there?
you doing? Frank Mazza, 55 Potter Road.
Spell your name, please.
Frank, F-R-A-N-K, Mazza, M-A-Z-Z-A.
And you swear to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Great. So go ahead, Mr. Mazza.
So, I guess the whole thing here is we're talking about setbacks and adding to it and then moving the garage further away and arborvitaes and how long they've been there. Those trees have been there forever. So they don't just plant 30 or 40 foot tall arborvitaes overnight. So I don't know what everyone's arguing about, but they've been there forever. And it was kind of set up so that the Donnells couldn't see what was going on the Leonard's property, whatever issue is there. But if we move that structure 10 feet away from there and another line of arborvitaes, all it does is it creates more of an obstruction of my view, and it puts that garage more in my face. It doesn't affect the Donnells one bit. So I'd be kind of upset if that was the case.
And where are you located relative? You are to the north,
I'm
correct?
directly across the street. The top of my property is directly across the street from the Donnells. The bottom of my property is directly across the street from the Leonards. And also the Hanson property, which is the property that I guess the Donnells or Becky sold to them and gave her blessing for them to do their variances because she got a commission or whatever. I don't know. But that's in my face. That's okay for them to, not object to that, but to this they're objecting to because it's going to affect me and the Leonards. But anyway, what Matt was saying, and me being an ex-fire chief and emergency services personnel, with emergency services coming down to the end of our road, is 100% correct. The road is narrow anyway. It's being constricted by people encroaching on it, neighbors all the way down the road, encroaching on the road. And if we had to get a fire truck down there or a ladder truck or an engine down there, it would almost be next to impossible. So with not having a sufficient turnaround down there, with moving that garage closer to the driveway, like Matt was saying, it's an issue. There's a problem there. So I'm just saying that it should be, if it can't go where it can't, or if it can't go where it's supposed to go, then it shouldn't go anywhere.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Mazza. Do you have anything else?
No, I think I've covered it pretty much all the way around.
Cool. Thank you. And board members, any questions for Mr. Mazza?
I just have a clarifying question, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, Mr. Charkowicz, please.
Yeah, Mr. Mazza, your last comment, you said if it can't go where it's supposed to go, it shouldn't go anywhere. Could you just elaborate? Are you saying if it can't go in the proposed location, it shouldn't go anywhere?
Absolutely correct. Yes, that's what I'm saying. Okay. Just for not even for personal reasons, but just for the fact of what Matt said before about, a UPS truck can come down there and turn around. But we've had issues where other people come down there with oil trucks or whatever, and there's no space for them to turn around. And there's been, I guess, notifications to the owners of the company that they don't want the oil truck parking on their property or whatever. So they park in the middle of Potter Road, and there's no room there. I mean, there has to be room for a turnaround for emergency vehicles down there. And right now there's not. If that building got moved closer to the road and a fire engine went down there, it would be a problem.
So you make a good point, sir. Now, because when I went to look at the property, the road just ends.
Yes.
It's not a cul-de-sac. It's not a turnaround.
No, it's private property at the end of the road.
So you have to go either your property, Hanson's property,
Hanson's property, you can't turn around, and it's either my property or the Leonard's property. So my property's wide open. I don't anticipate, well, unless you guys want to give me an approval right now, I'll put a 2-car garage up my property, but I'm not asking for that. But if we need to do this for the Leonard's, which I am in approval of, but it needs to go where they originally asked for it to go.
Okay.
Okay. That's all I had, Mr. Chairman.
Sure.
Okay, great. Thank you, Mr. Mazza. Anyone else? Questions for Mr. Mazza? Well, thank you very much, sir. I appreciate it. Okay. Is there anyone else out there, Jess, that has raised their hand?
Stephen had his hand raised again.
Oh, of course. Yeah, we were going to give them a chance to. But go ahead, Mr. Serta.
Mr. Chairman, I guess I would just point out, based on Mr. Mazza's comments, that the applicant is also, in addition to a side yard variance, seeking a front yard variance. So if we're raising issues about accessibility of trucks and fire engines and everything else, and that's their concern, then in asking to reduce that front yard variance, again, they're creating their own hardship.
How so? I'm not sure what you mean.
Well,
like how is it creating?
If his suggestion is that moving it that it is its location, or it being 4 feet from, that it's a difficult area already for emergency access vehicles and utility vehicles and commercial vehicles, not complying with the front yard setback and only being, I think it's 4 feet from the road.
So you're saying that
6 feet from the road is far less than what's required. So if his concern is, if Mr. Mazza raises the concern about accessibility already being an issue, putting in something that's close, that's already in an area that already has issues, to now encroach upon the road further.
I'm not sure they were saying it's encroaching on the road. I mean, as much as it is potentially moving it that 10 feet in is going to be halfway into the driveway.
And Mr. Chairman, we would be asking, just to clarify that, for a total setback of 10 feet. So we would be asking that what we would ask the board to do is that it would be, they are asking for 14 feet of relief. We're asking that the structure be moved 4 feet, not 10 feet.
So, but still that what they're saying is that 4 feet would constrict the driveway to the point of where it would be difficult to navigate because it's getting it closer to some of the features around the house.
And then I go back to they created the house, they designed it, and they created their own hardship in that regard. So I appreciate the opportunity to speak. Go ahead, Mr. Chairman.
So you're assuming that their plan, or you're suggesting their plan was to always have a garage there, but they just waited this long to put it in?
I'm saying, Mr. Chairman, that their plan always was to have that throughout the course of their development, based on their own testimony, they were going to have a garage be below grade. Then they considered a garage at grade, in all of which they made choices to differently utilize the area inside of their building envelope in the area within which they would not have to go to CRMC to ask for a significant variance.
So you're saying there were plenty of choices on the property to put the building in other places that then they could have had the garage without a setback.
So they created their own hardship.
So you're saying that there are plenty of opportunities to place that building in different spots of the property?
Plenty of opportunities to utilize for garage space and for an artisanal space, Mr. Chairman, whether or not in the form of an additional structure.
Okay. Anyone else? Questions before Ms. Hogan? You wanted to do a summary?
Yes, please, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Doesn't seem like there are any questions, so go for it.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. You've been very patient and attentive, and I appreciate that. I also understand it's often difficult to deal with contested applications, and it's even more so when we're all in this crazy capacity with the Zooming and all of the complications that arise from that. So I appreciate it. On behalf of my client, I'd like to suggest to the board that we have met the burden of proof for the granting of the two-dimensional variances that we have requested. The hardship from which the applicant seeks relief is in fact due to the unique characteristics of the subject land. You've heard the testimony in the record in regarding the fact that this lot, while it may be 20 some odd thousand square feet, only has a usable space of about 12,000 square feet. You've heard that the town's regulations for the OWTS with 150-foot setback impacted the placement of the septic system. You've heard the testimony that this had 3 flood zones on it, a V zone and 2 other zones. You heard the testimony about the CRMC setback requirements. All of those things combined together to squeeze the property. It's been suggested that the property's been overbuilt and that we made poor choices. I would suggest to the board that those restrictions that I've just identified have dictated where things go on this lot, and that it is no fault of the applicant that there is no other location for the location of this garage structure. It's not due to a physical or economic disability of the applicant. The hardship is not the result of any prior action of the applicant and does not result from the desire to realize greater financial gain. The testimony is that this is the Leonard's permanent home. It had been a summer home originally, like many homes in South Kingstown and surrounding communities. Folks buy a summer home and then eventually renovate it and retire there. You've heard the testimony that the Leonards have 4 boys. growing family, and that anticipate they will have hopefully many years of enjoyment with the family visiting. So their intent is not to realize greater financial gain. The granting of the requested variance will not alter the general character of the or impair the intent of the zoning ordinance. The testimony in the record and the evidence in the record is that this is a mixed area, if you will, that is changing over time, that variances have been secured by several of the other neighbors on rebuilds, that many of the other neighbors have garages, although they are 2-car garages, and this is only a 1-car garage. This is a residential neighborhood, zoned residential, and so clearly it's consistent with the comprehensive plan and the zoning ordinance. I'd also point out that the regulations that the applicant has followed to date are not relaxed regulations as the abutters attorney has suggested. When you have undersized lots of record, you have I'm tripping on my words, a gradation, if you will, of the setbacks, depending upon the width of the lots and the size of the lots. That is a very sensible approach rather than a one-size-fits-all for undersized lots of record. And so we have not asked for any relief prior in time to this particular variance request. The relief to be granted is in fact the least relief necessary. This is a 1-car garage. It is not a height variance, and so the structure, the space up above has no impact whatsoever on the requested relief of the side and rear, side and front setbacks. For those who plan to age in place, a garage is essential, particularly over time. And, you know, we've had a mild winter this year, but we're not always so lucky. There's no other location where the structure could be built based upon all of the site constraints that have been described, and particularly the alternate area for the septic system. So it's not located there, but additional space had to be allocated to it. And for those reasons, we submit to you that we have met the burden of proof, and we would respectfully request that the board grant the 2 requested variances. Thank you again for your attention.
Thank you, Ms. Hogan. So if there's nothing less to present, do any board members have any particular thoughts they'd like to review?
I'll go.
Okay, Mr. Daniels.
The objector's main argument seems to be both in letter form and in presentation here tonight, that the hardship exists because of prior actions of the applicant. In my judgment and my feeling is that the applicant did nothing wrong here. He achieved and was granted permits all along the way for everything he did on the property. If for some reason he did something on the property that was not approved and did not pass CRMC, FEMA, and all the other agencies that and our building official that was required, then he would have created a hardship because he would have done it without proper authorization. So I reject the argument that the owner created a hardship. The fact that he maximized the use on his property to his needs and to his wants does not, in my estimation, create a hardship based on his prior actions. So I have to reject that argument. And I think the fact that he made numerous additions and improvements to his property is, once again, not an issue. It's irrelevant to what we're talking about here. We're talking about the placement of a garage in one location, and there's absolutely no other, in my judgment, there's no other place or area on the property because of the 200-foot required setback. It just can't go anywhere else. So he has maximized the use of his property, and I can't find a way to object to this petition.
Okay, thank you, sir. Anyone else thoughts? I mean, I've got a bunch, so I can, so I agree with you, Mr. Daniels.
I'll say something.
Oh, okay, go ahead. You say it first and I'll go then.
I understand
Bill.
where the objector is coming from, and I understand where the applicant is coming from. It just seems to me that the reality of the situation is that he's got no other place to put the garage if he wants to have a garage. I really don't understand why they have to have a art studio above, but that's the way it is. It's not going to change the configuration of the garage in any other way. You might be able to get a little smaller garage in there if you didn't have the art studio, but that's not going to help the situation of the Nells, because you're still going to need the 24 feet for the length of the garage. And you're not going to be able to shorten the garage in any other way. So I don't have any objections at this point, although I might have had some previously. I don't have any objections at this point to going forward and approving this.
Okay.
That's it, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, great. Thank you, Bill. Well, how you guys feeling, Casey or Bill? Are you guys?
I'll make it simple. I concur with what Tom said. I feel the same way, that he's done it seems like the applicant has done everything by the book and is seeking the least relief necessary given the lot configuration. So I don't have a problem with it.
Casey, how you feeling?
The one piece I'm sort of struggling with is, in my view, to determine the least relief necessary, we need to understand the primary use for the structure. And I'm not sure that I understand what the primary use is, because it seems like if we could get a little more information as to the primary use, then we can understand how much space would be necessary for that. Is it the art studio? Is it the storage space? Because there's the additional 10-foot bike shed. So I'm a little hung up on that. I see both sides on this one. And it would be nice to try to strike a balance, but I'm not sure that we'll be able to get there.
I mean, I agree with a lot of the comments here. I think the one thing I've been most swayed by, and we have to, as a board, especially in these complex issues where we're dealing with CRMC, DEM, and other jurisdictions, we have to rely on our experts. And in this case, we're fortunate enough to have an engineer and an architect that have been previously in front of this board, who I have a personal high regard for, but professionally, I respect their opinions and their expertise as to use of such properties and explaining how these properties evolved. We're fortunate enough to know, these are the same experts that have been part of this project since its beginning. So I feel that they're being very honorable in the way this has evolved. It is a unique site. You can only use 60% of the lot to build off of. So now your 20,000 square foot lot is now much smaller. It's down to 12,000. And honestly, based on the configuration of the lot now and where things are placed, I really don't see anywhere else you could have the structure of the garage. Now, I think something I've always struggled with is that language of is it necessary? And are people getting the most out of their property if they don't have that particular thing? I think in this case, based on the surrounding area, that there are garages in many of these homes, many of the homes are of equal size to this. So I don't think it's out of character at all. So overall, I think, I feel it was justified, not only by its logic of its placement, but also the fact that it does fit in. So I don't particularly have an issue with it. I think it was just well thought. I think, it's unfortunate that that there is an issue with neighbors. I think that it's more than just this garage, but we are here for the garage. And I feel that with, if we were to have, I'm not even sure how we can have it with that space behind there. But if we can somehow maintain the greenery and the screening in between, because it seems to have a great benefit for these two properties. So yeah, so that's what I'm thinking. Is there anyone willing to make a motion based on this?
I'll do it, Mr. Chairman. I would ask legal counsel to take particular note of this decision because it is contested and will probably need to be creatively crafted by your expertise when I'm done.
Yes, will do.
Okay, thank you. So motion to approve the petition of Matthew and Jean Marie Leonard, 68 Potter Road. The application was read into the record by the chairman. The documents, which are rather lengthy and in excess in this application, have also been identified, the key being the site plan and the various photos and other documents that were entered on behalf of the applicant. Margaret Hogan, attorney for the applicant, conducted the testimony of the owner, Matt Leonard. That testimony basically consisted of the history of the property, much testimony on the permitting, and the upgrades to the property over the years since, I believe, 2004. She also conducted the examination of Amy Sonder, a professional land surveyor, who we qualified as an expert. And she has been involved with the project also from the beginning. And she testified in detail about CRMC setbacks, FEMA setbacks, and the steps that were taken to make the property as livable and as developable as it is today. She also provided extensive testimony on the septic system and described for the board the setbacks required of the structures, and the proposed garage cannot go any closer to what's proposed because of these setbacks and potential areas for additional leach fields. She also testified that the lot coverage with the garage is approximately 10.7% at this stage. Also appearing and testifying under Margaret Hogan's questioning was Nancy Leslie, architect, and she was accepted by the chairman as an expert. And she basically testified as to the original design of the property and to many of the constraints, in echoing Ms. Saunders' testimony as to the constraints regarding FEMA setbacks, regarding CRMC setbacks, and the 200-foot coastal feature setback, which is very important in this petition, because the garage cannot be located any closer or in any different location without impinging on the 200-foot setback. There was a letter of support that was entered from Mr. Hanson, from the Andersons, and from Mr. Mazza, who also spoke and testified as to the as to the fact that this would not impact the area and would be in keeping with what exists in the area, since many of the homes do have garages. And to note, he had some background as a public safety official and indicated that if the garage were to go in any other location than what's been proposed, it would create a significant traffic hazard with regard to emergency vehicles. We had opposition testimony provided by, directed by, I should say, Attorney Surdit. He argued for the most part that there was a hardship that existed based on the owner's previous activities. The board does not find that a hardship exists because whatever the owner did previously was properly done, was permitted. It was done within the constraints of the CRMC, FEMA, DEM, all the other permitting agencies, including our own building agency, and therefore does not create a hardship based on his prior actions. We also heard from Mr. Donnell, who testified as to the, for the most part, as to the view from his property that would be impacted by the garage. The board has consistently found that a view of another property is not reason for denial. And as a personal note, I have observed that there is extensive landscaping between this proposed garage and the opposition's property. And in fact does not represent a hardship for the abutting owner. The board finds that the hardship from which the applicant seeks relief is not due, or I should say is due to the unique characteristics of the subject land and not to the general characteristics surrounding and of the surrounding area. There is only one location on the property based on extensive testimony where this garage can be located. To move it any closer to the road represents a safety hazard, and to move it any closer to the west side of the property would impinge on the coastal feature 200-foot setback, which would require extensive expenditure on the applicant's behalf to appear before CRMC, most likely at a full board hearing, and would be unlikely to get an administrative decision from that agency if it were to move inside the 200-foot setback. The board finds that the hardship is not the result of any prior action of the applicant and does not result primarily from the desire of the applicant to realize greater financial gain, because he lives in a property, he intends to live in a property, he intends to construct a garage that needs 19 feet of front yard relief and 14 feet of side yard relief with a studio above to accommodate the needs of his spouse, who is an abutting artist, apparently. The general characteristic of the surrounding area will not be impaired because there are two-car garages, both attached and detached, at several locations along Potter Road. 46 Potter Road has a two-car garage with a loft. 55 Potter has a two-car garage. 5 Potter has a two-car garage. 4 Potter has a two-car garage. And 155 Old Succotash, which is really adjacent to Potter Road, also has a two-car garage detached with a loft. So this would certainly be keeping within the general characteristics of the area. The board finds that the relief to be granted is the least relief necessary, once again, because to construct a garage any smaller than what's been proposed would not be sufficient for the applicant to place his vehicle inside and also to have room for storage and also to accommodate what he requires or what he would like to have for a studio above. And I should point out that this studio, we've had extensive testimony as to the studio. It would have a lavette. It would not have any living quarters. It's not intended to be a bedroom. The septic system is maxed out as it is for the number of bedrooms. So this would be strictly an open area and for studio and storage. The board finds that the hardship suffered by the owner of the subject property, if the dimensional variance is not granted, does amount to more than a mere inconvenience, because once again, the owner is certainly entitled to have a garage. We have extensive evidence that there are garages all along Potter Avenue, and certainly in this climate, it is not unusual for the owners of any home to have a garage and to desire to have a garage and to have areas for their vehicle, and also for it's not unusual to have a studio above a garage. We see many of those throughout the town. So therefore, it amounts to more than a mere inconvenience to not grant this proposal or this application, I should say. And there's simply no other location on the property where this particular structure could be located that would make any reasonable sense. And with that, there are no conditions to my motion to approval. And with that, I would move passage.
Done. Thank you, Mr. Daniels. Is there a second?
Second.
Second, Mr. Rosen. Any discussion or is anything to add? Sounds like you got everything.
Yeah, and I want to say, Tom, you did a terrific job.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, hearing no objections or additions.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, is it a 2-year conditional, Amy?
Yes. I'm sorry, Jess. It is a 2-year conditional because there is some possible CRMC involvement. Is that right, Amy?
Yes, that is. Thank you for noting that, Jess and Tom.
Okay, and do you second that, Mr. Rosen?
Yes.
Any other discussion? Hearing none. Mr. Daniels?
Aye.
Mr. Rosen?
Aye.
Mr. Mark?
Aye.
Mr. Charkowicz?
Sorry.
All right. And Mr. Cagna, aye. Motion passes. Good luck.
Thank you very much to everyone.
Good luck.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone.
Okay. Is there any other, I think we did minutes last week, right? The only thing would be a roll call for next month.
Correct.
Okay. And what's the date again?
February 17th.
Yeah.
February 17th. I will be here. Is there anyone that's planning on not, or that won't be around?
I'm not going anywhere with COVID around.
It's St. Patty's Day. Whoa, whoa, whoa. It's St. Patty's Day.
Or is it Ash?
No.
March.
It's
Slow
next.
Ash Wednesday. is-
Slow
Do we
down.
drink?
Slow down. You're getting over your skis there.
Happy 2022, everybody.
17.
Right.
17?
So, okay, if everybody's gonna be here, Jess,
that's March.
we'll just have to
Mark,
find out
sorry.
from Mr. Jerzak if he's gonna be here.
I do not believe he's going to be. I don't believe he's back until March.
Okay. And is there still one other person that was gonna join? No? No one on the,
What was it?
We're waiting for council action on that.
oh, are we? Okay.
Is it 17 or 18? I'm confused. Which date?
17 in February.
17, okay.
I believe it's 17 in February and March.
Okay.
28 days. Excellent. Okay, without anything else, can we get a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
All right.
I'll move. Second.
Excellent. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you all.
Good night, everybody.
Night.
Well done.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Have a good night.